Chapter 387. Yu Chenxi's face froze. He was stumped by Xiao Chen's words. After thinking about it carefully, it seemed to make sense. However, he still felt that something was wrong. This person was too despicable. In the past, when he needed help, there would be countless people rushing to help him without him even asking. He even looked down on them. However, this Xiao Chen took the initiative to ask for help. He owed him a favor. How could he say that he was taking advantage of me? Thinking of this word, Yu Chenxi finally understood what was wrong. He quickly said, "You can say that I owe you a favor. How can you say that I am taking advantage of you?" Looking at Yu Chenxi's angry expression, Bai said timidly, "Sister Yu, that was what Bai said, not Brother Xiao Chen. Don't blame Brother Xiao Chen." When Yu Chenxi heard this, she was stumped again. It seemed like Xiao Bai was the one who said it, but she got angry at Xiao Chen. How depressing. When I meet with this fellow, why does it seem like I am being unreasonable? Yu Chenxi thought angrily in her heart. Xiao Chen smiled gently and pulled Bai behind him. He smiled faintly and said, "Don't blame yourself. Actually, that is what I meant. You just said it for me first." Then, when Yu Chenxi was about to lose his temper, Xiao Chen continued, "Don't be angry. Just as you said, take it as a favor. Tell me the details. I want to see if your favor is worth the risk." Yu Chenxi said angrily, Why do I feel like I am talking business with you? You are so unscrupulous." When Xiao Chen heard the word, business, something stirred in his heart, stirring him up. If all the things in the world could be like business, fair trading and good parting. Xiao Chen also felt that it was not bad. Unfortunately, he had seen too much. The nature of the world was the survival of the fittest. Without strength, there would be no fairness. Forget it. You can say whatever you want. Just tell me what you want me to help you with, Xiao Chen said indifferently. Yu Chenxi thought for a while and organized his words in his mind. Then, he told Xiao Chen the whole story. It turned out that after she finished her training in the Boundless Sea, she had planned to return to the Jin Nation. However, she had unexpectedly met Jin Wuji on Green Wind Island. Jin Wuji had met Jin Wuji once in the previous Five-Nation Youth Competition and exchanged a few words with him. Now that they met again, it was hard not to greet him. Jin Wuji first invited Yu Chenxi to a gathering at the restaurant, but Yu Chenxi was in a hurry to return. Furthermore, in her eyes, the quality of this gathering was not very high. The people who came were not the top geniuses of the various nations. Furthermore, she did not have much of a relationship with Jin Wuji, so there was no need for her to agree to their request. Furthermore, she could guess that Jin Wuji wanted to use her identity to expand his influence. All the more she would not agree. However, Jin Wuji told her that there was news of the daybreak grass on Qianren Island. As long as she was willing to attend the gathering, he would tell her the exact location of the daybreak grass. The martial technique that Yu Chenxi practiced, the Morning Sun Fist, had to be supplemented with the corresponding cultivation technique, the Morning Sun Incantation. However, it was extremely difficult to improve the Morning Sun Incantation. If one had the support of the daybreak flower, they could greatly increase the speed of their cultivation. Furthermore, the effects of the daybreak flower were not temporary, they were permanent. Xiao Chen looked around and asked suspiciously, the daybreak flower should have a demonic beast or spirit beast guarding it. You are here to ask for my help. However, Jin Wuji should be very willing to help you. Why do I not see him? Yu Chenxi said, he was injured by the black-blooded demonic corpses and left in a hurry. He could not even take care of himself. Xiao Chen thought about it carefully and discovered that it was not a particularly difficult problem. He raised his head and said, "It is not a big problem, I will help you. However, I will forget about the favor. Just treat it as me returning the favor of keeping the secret for me in the herb garden." Yu Chenxi smiled gently. He finally heard this fellow say something decent, he was no longer so infuriating. In that case, let's go. Follow me. Under Yu Chenxi's lead, the three of them quickly headed to the north of Qianren Island. Qianren Island was very large, it was not much smaller than Green Wind Island. However, it was much more desolate. Aside from the majestic, dilapidated palace, there were no other buildings on the island. There were rocks everywhere, and no grass grew. Yu Chenxi, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped. He gestured for the two to hide behind a huge rock. He poked his head out and pointed to an empty space 1,000 meters ahead. There was nothing there except for a 10-meter-tall black wolf crouching there. The daybreak flower is beside that wolf. Be careful. That wolf's senses are very strong, Yu Chenxi said softly. Xiaoqin took a closer look. There was nothing there at all. He thought that Yu Chenxi had said the wrong place. He used his spiritual sense to scan the wolf's surroundings. However, he still did not discover anything. Xiaoqin could not help but look suspiciously at Yu Chenxi. The daybreak flower? Why don't I see it? Yu Chenxi suddenly said, I forgot to tell you. The daybreak flower can only be seen when the sun rises. Furthermore, it only lasts for a short period of time, no more than 5 minutes. When Xiaoqin heard this, he looked at the sky above him. It was only noon. There were still more than 20 hours until the next day's dawn. Where did that wolf come from? It seems to only have the strength of a rank 7 demonic beast. With your strength, you should not need any help, Xiaoqin said in a deep voice. The wolf crouched on the ground. It was more than 10 meters tall and extremely burly. Its eyes were pitch black, and it did not seem to have anything special about it. However, Xiaoqin keenly felt that something was wrong. This wolf might not be as ordinary as it looked. Otherwise, Yu Chenxi would not have called him for help for no reason. Yu Chenxi explained, that is a greedy dream wolf. It is not a demonic beast. It is a rank 7 spirit beast. Its strength is average, but it is good at creating illusions. It is extremely rare. The daybreak flower's fragrance can help it speed up its cultivation. Wherever it is, there will definitely be a daybreak flower. Later, I will make a move first to attract its attention. You go and pick the flower. As long as the two of us do not fall into the illusion at the same time, it will be easy to deal with. Xiaoqin nodded and did not say anything else. He took out a medial-grade spirit stone from the universe ring and sat cross-legged on the ground. Hey, what are you doing? Yu Chenxi looked at Xiaoqin, who was preparing to cultivate. He said in astonishment, at this time, when the huge waves are weaker, it is the time when there are the most people on the island. If we startle the greedy dream wolf, it might eat the daybreak flower. Xiaoqin shook his head and said, there is no need to go through so much trouble with the two of us. You alone should be enough. If there are any unexpected situations, just wake me up. There were still more than 20 hours to wait. This was a long time. Xiaoqin did not want to waste this time. Furthermore, staring in one direction for a long time made him tired. Xiaoqin slowly circulated the purple thunder divine incantation. An endless stream of spiritual energy came from the medial-grade spirit stone and headed for the qi whirlpool in his dantian. Xiaoqin had just broken through to superior-grade martial saint not long ago. He still needed some time to stabilize his cultivation before he could use the spirit herb to break through to peak superior-grade martial saint. After all, spirit herbs were external items. Without a good foundation, they would be like a loose dam. The vast medicinal energy was like a gushing flood. Without a good dam, it would immediately collapse. Not only would it not raise his cultivation, but it would also cause great harm to his cultivation. Xiaoqin had to be careful. Xiaoqin did not have the ability to fail. Thus, he could not waste too much of the 20-odd hours he had left. The pure essence in the spirit stone was quickly drained. As the purple thunder divine incantation circulated in a great cycle, it slowly flowed into his dantian. The purple cyclone expanded bit by bit, becoming more solid and tenacious bit by bit. Time slowly went by. By the time Xiaoqin opened his eyes again, the sky was already dark, it was already evening. When Bai saw that Xiao Chen had woken up, she said pitifully, "Elder brother Xiao Chen, Bai is hungry." Xiao Chen smiled gently and put away the medial-grade spirit stone that still had half of its energy left. He said, "Let's eat, I am a little hungry as well." When Bai heard this, she immediately smiled happily. She received the food that Xiao Chen handed over and started eating happily. Aside from preserving the quality of the food, the universe ring could also preserve freshness. Thus, Xiao Chen's food was very tasty, it almost retained its original taste. The aroma assailed their noses, the two of them ate to their satisfaction. Xiao Chen took out a wine cup and filled it with wine, preparing to take another sip. Bai quickly removed the bottle gourd at her waist. Her intelligent eyes squinted into a pair of crescent moons, she looked very cute. "Elder brother Xiao Chen, come, cheers." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and clinked his bottle gourd with Bai's. Then, he drained the wine in his cup in one gulp. Yu Chenxi turned his head and looked at the two eating happily. His intelligent eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. He said somewhat speechlessly, "White-robed hero, what are you doing now?" Xiao Chen gently put down the wine cup and muttered, "Eating." Yu Chenxi said somewhat angrily, "This daybreak flower is very important to me. If I miss this opportunity, who knows how long I will have to wait to find it again. If we startle the greedy dream wolf, all our efforts will be for naught. I beg you, white-robed hero, can you be more serious? As a cultivator, it is no big deal to skip a meal. Just bear with it and it will be over." Gurgle. Gurgle. Just as Yu Chenxi finished speaking, a strange sound came from her stomach, it was drawn out. Suddenly, Yu Chenxi blushed. Only now did she remember that she had rushed back from the boundless sea and then rushed to Qianren Island. It had been a long time since she had eaten. Bai quickly took out some food and handed it to Yu Chenxi. She said, "Elder sister Yu, your stomach is growling from hunger. Eat something. If you do not eat, you will feel uncomfortable." In the past, Bai often forgot to eat as well. Yu Chenxi blushed. She could only blame her stomach for not doing her best. Of all times, it had to growl at this moment. Earlier, she had said that as a cultivator, skipping a meal was nothing. She had used this reason to teach Xiao Chen a lesson. In the end, retribution came. He is going to make me laugh to death, Yu Chenxi thought awkwardly. Eat something. For a peak medial grade martial king's stomach to growl, you must have not eaten for at least half a month. Since the daybreak flower is so important to you, all the more you need to eat. I will help you take a look. Chapter 388. Xiao Chen walked over and patted Yu Chenxi's shoulder calmly. Then, he took over her position and stared at the black greedy dream wolf in front. Yu Chenxi felt warmth in her heart, she was very touched. She had not expected the cold and somewhat emotionless Xiao Chen to be so considerate. Just as she was about to thank him, she discovered that Xiao Chen's lips twitched a few times. It was clear that he wanted to laugh but was trying to hold it in. Yu Chenxi clenched her fist and smacked Xiao Chen hard. She said angrily, If you want to laugh, just laugh. Why do you have to hold it in and pretend to be a good person?" Bang! Bang! Fists rained down. However, Xiao Chen could no longer hold it in. He laughed and allowed Yu Chenxi's fists to land on him. Although they were competing in strength, the other party did not use any essence. Xiao Chen could throw the dragon tendon tiger bone at her. Xiao Chen also did not circulate the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. Otherwise, Yu Chenxi would beat herself up. Xiao Chen stretched out his hands and grabbed Yu Chenxi's disorderly fists. He smiled gently and said, "Heroine, eat something. As a cultivator, their stomachs will growl too." Yu Chenxi rolled her eyes at Xiao Chen. She was no longer in the mood to continue pestering him. She obediently received the food that Bai handed over and started eating. At first, she was enjoying the food elegantly. However, in the end, it seemed like she was really starving. Furthermore, she was feeling depressed, so she did not care about anything else and started eating in big mouthfuls. In the end, she accidentally choked and started coughing. When Bai saw the situation, she quickly handed over her wine gourd. Yu Chenxi received it and started drinking. She only stopped after taking a big gulp. Xiao Chen happened to turn around and saw this scene. His expression could not help but change. "It's over." Bai mistook the white wine for water and handed it to this girl. Putting down the wine gourd, Yu Chenxi's pretty face flushed red. She could not help but exhale. "Bai, what did you hand me?" "A good white wine." In the past, when Bai choked on it, she would be fine after drinking a few mouthfuls, Bai said seriously with a smile. "Wine?" Yu Chenxi was startled. She said dizzily, "I can't drink." Right after she spoke, she collapsed. Xiao Bai quickly pulled her into her embrace and asked anxiously, "Elder brother Xiao Chen, what happened to elder sister Yu?" Xiao Chen stretched out his index finger and placed it under Yu Chenxi's nose for a while. He smiled gently and said, "She is fine, she is just drunk." "How did she get drunk?" Bai asked suspiciously. "That's strange. Elder sister Yu did not drink much. How did she get drunk?" There was nothing strange about that. Some people could hold their liquor well and would not get drunk even after 1,000 cups. Some people could not hold their liquor well and would get drunk after just one sip. It was clear that Yu Chenxi belonged to the latter group. It was good for her to sleep for a while. This girl was too tense because of the daybreak flower. Xiao Chen said, "Take care of her. I will continue to keep an eye on the greedy dream wolf." The night slowly darkened. Unknowingly, it was already midnight. Xiao Chen had been keeping an eye on the greedy dream wolf for some time. Aside from the fact that the greedy dream wolf would occasionally close its eyes and sniff the air, there were no other surprises. Xiao Chen turned his head and looked at Yu Chenxi in Bai's arms. She was already in a deep sleep. Her eyes were closed and she was breathing rhythmically. She looked calm and serene. At this moment, it was hard to imagine that this beautiful girl in her sleep was the proud daughter of heaven that was pursued by tens of thousands of people in the great Jin nation. She was no different from an ordinary girl. This girl's martial prowess was 100 points, and her charm was also 100 points. However, her intelligence seemed to be slightly lacking. Her experience was also ridiculously lacking. It would be difficult for her to inherit the supreme sky sect like this, Xiao Chen thought to himself as he shook his head. After another 4 hours, Xiao Chen looked at the brightening sky and stretched out his hand to push Yu Chenxi, who was in Bai's arms. The moment Xiao Chen's finger touched the other party, Yu Chenxi immediately startled awake. A bright light flashed in her deep eyes. She revealed a murderous intent and was very alert. When Yu Chenxi saw that it was Xiao Chen, she relaxed her guard. She rubbed her temples and asked somewhat anxiously, "Did I oversleep?" Xiao Chen said indifferently, "No. Hurry up and get ready. The sun will rise in 10 minutes. Yu Chenxi was mildly startled. He quickly got up and circulated his energy to force out the alcohol in his body. After that, he went behind the huge rock and waited patiently. Time ticked by. The eastern horizon slowly started to brighten. Yu Chenxi slowly became anxious. He clenched his right hand tightly. Xiao Chen did not feel anything, he remained very calm. In terms of mental state, Yu Chenxi was still slightly inferior to Xiao Chen. Hu Qi. Suddenly, a dazzling light appeared in the eastern sky. The golden light was very eye-catching, breaking through the last trace of darkness before dawn. When it landed beside the greedy dream wolf, it suddenly reflected a resplendent flower. That flower seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. If it did not appear, no one would be able to find it. However, when it appeared, it attracted everyone's attention. It was extremely beautiful, making people unable to look away. The daybreak flower. It really is the daybreak flower. Yu Chenxi's fairy-like face smiled happily. It seemed even more beautiful than the dazzling and beautiful daybreak flower. Yu Chenxi said softly, the daybreak flower only appears for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, it will be impossible to find, no matter what we do. I will attract the greedy dream wolf's attention. You go pick the flower. After you pick the flower, attack the greedy dream wolf and save me from the illusion of the greedy dream wolf. Otherwise, if I stay in it for too long, I might not be able to get out. When Xiaochen heard this, he smiled gently and said, You really trust me. If I take the daybreak flower and leave, you will not get anything and even lose your life. Yu Chenxi looked at the resplendent daybreak flower and said indifferently, The daybreak flower is useless to you. You are a smart person. You will not offend the strong Supreme Sky sect for something useless. That was indeed the case. It seemed that Yu Chenxi was not stupid. After looking at the greedy dream wolf, Xiaochen said, One last question. How many people can the greedy dream wolf pull into the illusion? 1, Yu Chenxi said with absolute certainty. Bai, who had already woken up, said softly, Elder sister Yu, Bai wants to help too. Xiaochen quickly rejected, telling them to just stay where they were. However, Yu Chenxi thought for a while and said, It seems like we do need one more person. If there is any sudden situation, Xiaochen, you will deal with it. Then, let Bai pick the flower. Bai said happily, Elder brother Xiaochen, let Bai participate. Bai can run very fast. There will not be any danger. The arrangement was very simple. There should not be any danger. Furthermore, it was just picking the flower. In the end, Xiaochen agreed to let Bai participate. Alright, let's go. Right after Yu Chenxi spoke, she immediately leaped into the air. When the morning sun shone on her exquisite figure, she looked even more beautiful. Morning Sun Fist. A light exploded on the tip of his fist. The extremely dense fist wind broke through the obstruction of space. It was like an intense cannonball, instantly striking the huge body of the greedy dream wolf. Bang! A bloody hole immediately appeared on the greedy dream wolf's body. Blood poured out like a fountain. Boom! 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 Yu Chenxi's movements did not stop. The tyrannical morning sun fist was like a machine gun, bombarding the greedy dream wolf relentlessly. Deep pits appeared on the ground. The greedy dream wolf had already reacted. It quickly ran on the ground, dodging the fist wind. Yu Chenxi chased closely. The greedy dream wolf turned around and spat out black energy balls to counterattack. One man and one wolf fought intensely on the ground. A peak rank 7 spirit beast's combat prowess was equal to a superior grade martial king. Yu Chenxi did not dare to be careless with its counterattack. Let's go. Seeing that the greedy dream wolf was lured away, Xiaochen immediately led Bai towards the blooming daybreak flower. Just as the two of them were about to reach breaking dawn, the explosions that rang in their ears from time to time suddenly stopped. It was like time had stopped flowing. The intense battle had ended just like that. Xiaochen turned his head and saw Yu Chenxi standing on the ground in a daze. A strange black light flickered in the pitch-black eyes of the greedy dream wolf opposite him. Yu Chenxi should be trapped in an illusion. He would not be in any danger for now. However, it would be hard to say for sure as time passed. Xiaochen quickly turned his head and rushed towards the daybreak flower. He wanted to pick the daybreak flower and save Yu Chenxi from the illusion. Wang! Wang! Just at this moment, just as Xiaochen's hand was about to touch the daybreak flower, the surrounding world suddenly started spinning, giving off a hazy feeling. Xiaochen felt a pair of eyes staring at him from behind. It was strangely enticing, forcing him to turn his head and look. Just as Xiaochen was fighting against this force, Bai turned around in a daze. Xiaochen was startled. He quickly said, Bai, close your eyes. As he spoke, a ripple appeared in his mind. He could not help but turn around to look as well. Xiao. Xiaochen saw that the greedy dream wolf's pitch-black eyes had turned silver. It was extremely attractive, making one unable to bear to close their eyes when they looked at it. Oh no, This is the king of the greedy dream wolves. Yu Chenxi's information must have been wrong. He can definitely drag many people into an illusion at the same time. The situation in front of Xiao Chen suddenly changed. Everything around him was pitch black. The clown felt an evil force trying to peer into the depths of his soul. He quickly used his spiritual sense and turned it into sharp blades, cutting off this evil force. Roar! Roar! A miserable shriek resounded in Xiao Chen's ears. The surrounding pitch-black scene suddenly changed. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and discovered that he was standing in the middle of a vast prairie. Countless scarlet eyes stared at him from all directions. Packs of demonic wolves paced the edges of the savanna like they were food on a plate, occasionally howling. Hu Qi! Hu Qi! In the next instant, the demonic wolves from all directions charged at Xiao Chen like a flood. Their howls rang out in the desolate savanna, shocking everyone. Ka Xie! Xiao Chen drew the lunar shadow saber and chopped. He chopped all the surrounding demonic wolves in half. Blood splattered everywhere, covering the sky. Chapter 389. Scarlet clouds filled the sky. Xiao Chen brought out the state of massacre to its limits, killing all the demonic wolves that pounced at him like a flood. His white robes were soon dyed red with blood. However, there were simply too many demonic wolves. It seemed like there was no end to them. No matter what he did, he could not kill them all. Time slowly went by. Xiao Chen slowly became bloodthirsty from all the killing. His eyes turned bloodshot, and he switched from holding his saber with one hand to holding it with both hands. Xiao Chen fought desperately in the pack of demonic wolves, moving in and out. Every time he swung his saber, it would leave a large pool of blood. He killed countless demonic wolves. As Xiao Chen slaughtered the demonic wolves, the scarlet throne in his sea of consciousness trembled in excitement. This made Xiao Chen feel carefree. Xiao Chen's entire body was filled with energy. He felt an inexplicable excitement from killing. The stimulated saber light became even more ferocious, and Xiao Chen killed with even more vigor. Wang! Just as Xiao Chen was about to sink into the state of massacre, the lunar shadow saber suddenly lit up with a beam of light and shot at Xiao Chen's forehead. Xiao Chen's agitated heart immediately calmed down. It was like he had jumped into an icy river on a hot summer's day. His mind was now completely awake. Xiao Chen's eyes regained their clarity. He leaped up and dodged the attacks of the many demonic wolves. Fear appeared on his face as he said, "How dangerous. This illusion nearly made me sink into the state of massacre." Looking at the smooth mirror-like lunar shadow saber, Xiao Chen thought to himself, "It looks like Ao Jiao pulled me back at the crucial moment." Although this greedy dream wolf did not invade Xiao Chen's heart, it sensed the state of massacre that Xiao Chen cultivated. So, it set up an illusion that targeted the state of massacre to lure Xiao Chen into it. It looked like the greedy dream wolf's illusion was not as simple as creating an illusion that made it hard to distinguish between real and fake. Instead, it penetrated deep into the human heart, trying to make one sink into it. However, since Xiao Chen knew the principle behind it, it was easier to deal with. This is an illusion created based on the state of massacre. In that case, I will use the state of thunder to break it. Boom! The scarlet clouds in the sky scattered, and boundless thunderclouds rolled over. Occasionally, there would be the sound of thunder. Xiao Chen descended from the sky and started his massacre once again. However, this time, Xiao Chen did not use the state of massacre at all, he only used the purest state of thunder. Xiao Chen executed the Wukuei saber to its peak in the desolate plain. The demonic wolves on the ground disappeared at a visible rate. After a while, Xiao Chen sheathed his saber. There were no longer any demonic wolves in the entire savanna. Thunder rumbled in the sky. Cracks started to appear in space. After a while, the entire space shattered. At this moment, with just a thought, Xiao Chen could leave this place. Xiao Chen smiled faintly, "Indeed, it is as I expected. As long as I find the corresponding method, I will be able to break this illusion." However, there is no rush to leave. I still have to save Xiao Bai and Yu Chenxi. Of Xiao Chen, spiritual energy. He. Chen's spirit, Xiao spirits. Xiao. Xiao Chen did spirit. Xiao. A golden light flashed in the red dot on Xiao Chen's forehead. A golden deity appeared. It was about 1 meter tall and held a sharp saber in its hand. This was the strongest form that Xiao Chen's spiritual sense could take. It could only appear in this illusion. If it were in reality, it would be difficult to bring out its full power. Break! Xiao Chen shouted and controlled the golden deity. It held the sharp saber in its hand and sliced through the air. Instantly, a long spatial crack appeared. Xiao Chen leaped up and brought his spiritual sense through the crack, entering another space. The scene in this space was very simple. It was just a wine cellar. There were piles of good wine on the ground and around it. Bai ran around excitedly. Occasionally, he would go to this bottle and take a sip. When he was tired of it, he would go to another bottle and drink. Xiao Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry. How much did Bai love to drink? Perhaps the greedy dream wolf could not think of any other way to make Bai sink into intoxication. Xiao Chen stood in front of Bai. However, Bai did not notice him at all. With a slight movement, it pierced through Xiao Chen's body. It looks like I am just an outsider in this world, Xiao Chen thought to himself. If I use wine to make Bai sink into intoxication, then I can break this illusion without any wine to drink. Break! The deity swung out a sharp saber and shattered all the wine bottles in the wine cellar. This included the bottle in Bai's hand. Chi! 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 Under Bai's suspicious gaze, the entire space started to shatter quickly. Bai and Xiao Chen arrived in an empty space. When Xiao Bai opened her eyes and saw Xiao Chen, the confused Xiao Bai immediately said joyfully, "Elder brother Xiao Chen, I had a dream earlier. I dreamed that there was a lot of good wine. I don't know who broke all the wine bottles, but I woke up." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "Dreams will eventually wake up. Just stay here and don't move." Controlling the deity, Xiao Chen tore open the void again and flew towards Yu Chenxi's dream. Boom! The moment Xiao Chen landed, he saw a dazzling light. Countless fist images flashed in the light. The fist winds blew, causing countless people to vomit blood and retreat. When all the lights scattered, Yu Chenxi stood proudly in a vast arena. The people lying below the arena were all disciples wearing the uniform of the Supreme Sky Sect. It looked like Yu Chenxi had already made it through. He no longer needed Xiao Chen's help. However, Yu Chenxi's complexion was extremely pale. Clearly, he had had a very unpleasant experience before this. It looked like this greedy dream wolf had penetrated deep into Yu Chenxi's heart. Seeing Xiao Chen land beside him, Yu Chenxi said apologetically, "I'm sorry. This greedy dream wolf is a king-grade spirit beast. I underestimated its strength." Xiao Chen said softly, "It's fine. Let's go out quickly. If we miss the time, we will have to wait another day for the daybreak flower." The two of them worked together to shatter this space. Then, they carried by and completely destroyed the greedy dream wolf's illusion. Xiao. The scene before them changed. The morning sun shone, and Qianren Island reappeared before the three. Before Xiao Chen could heave a sigh of relief, a huge shadow pounced at him. It was the greedy dream wolf that was pouncing over quickly. Ka-xie. A saber light flashed. Xiao Chen brandished his lunar shadow saber and hacked at the other party's neck at lightning speed. Blood spurted out, but the saber did not manage to chop off the wolf's head. Instead, it left a horrifying wound stuck in the bone of the other party's neck, preventing it from advancing or retreating. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He decisively abandoned his saber and retreated. However, the greedy dream wolf was even faster than Xiao Chen. In the instant that Xiao Chen hesitated, the greedy dream wolf's front claws stabbed into Xiao Chen's chest. The sharp claws pierced through the inner vest on Xiao Chen's chest. Then, the 5 claws stabbed towards Xiao Chen's heart. However, just as the claws were about to reach the heart, they met with a layer of obstruction. It was an inferior grade secret treasure's defense against internal organs. Bang! Yu Chenxi did not give the greedy dream wolf a chance to exert any more strength. He quickly flew over and punched the wolf's head. A dazzling golden light exploded from the fist wind, and the wolf's head immediately shattered. Yu Chenxi kicked away the greedy dream wolf's corpse. When he saw the horrifying wound on Xiao Chen's chest, he asked anxiously, "Xiao Chen, are you all right?" Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. He endured the pain and smiled, "I did not injure my heart or lungs. I won't die. Go and pick your daybreak flower. If you don't, time will pass." Yu Chenxi did not say anything. He pressed on a few acupoints on Xiao Chen's chest. After he carefully examined the injuries, he heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Chen left behind a bottle of good quality recuperation medicine and rushed to the daybreak flower. When the daybreak flower's light dimmed, he dug it out, roots included. Bai helped Xiao Chen up. His eyes were bloodshot as he applied the recuperation medicine on Xiao Chen's wounds. When the cooling medicinal liquid dripped onto the wounds, Xiao Chen's pain immediately lessened. Xiao Chen swallowed a blood-replenishing pill and took out some bandages. With Bai's help, he started bandaging his wounds. In the past, when Xiao Chen was out on experiential training, Bai had helped him bandage his wounds. Thus, he was quite familiar with it and quickly finished bandaging his wounds. The wounds were really horrifying. When Xiao Chen thought about it, he felt some lingering fear. It could be said that he had just taken a trip to the gates of hell. If it were not for the secret treasure protecting his internal organs, the Wolf King's claws would have pierced through his heart. Xiao Chen struggled to get up and rubbed Bai's head. He smiled and said, "Don't look so red. It's fine now. Help me bring the lunar shadow saber over." Bai nodded and said, "All right, I'll go now." Yu Chenxi, who had just finished picking the daybreak flower, walked over. He thanked Xiao Chen sincerely. "Xiao Chen, thank you. If it were not for you, I would not have been able to obtain the daybreak flower." Xiao Chen looked around and said with a grave expression, "There's no need to say thank you. Let's go quickly. I feel that something is wrong with this Qianren Island." When Yu Chenxi heard this, he felt it was strange. He asked, "What's wrong? I was only gone for 5 minutes." Xiao Chen smiled bitterly and said, "I was really gone for only 5 minutes. Use your perception and look around." Yu Chenxi closed his eyes and extended his perception. After a while, his expression changed slightly. The entire Qianren Island was silent. Furthermore, when Xiao Chen looked around, he could not see a single person on the island that had been bustling with people the previous night. Xiao Chen smiled bitterly and said, "Stop thinking about it. Let's go and see if we can break through the huge waves first." 10 minutes later, the 3 of them appeared in front of a huge wave. Yu Chenxi executed the morning sun fist to its limits. Beams of light filled the air. However, the towering waves did not move at all. Instead, they bounced back with a strong force, nearly injuring Yu Chenxi. Yu Chenxi landed on the surface of the sea. He asked in astonishment, "What's going on? Before I came, I could break through the huge waves with a casual punch." Xiao Chen muttered to himself for a while before saying, "The strength of the huge waves has already returned to normal. It looks like we have been in the illusion for at least 5 days." In a desolate rock pile on Qianren Island, Yu Chenxi had a grave expression as he said, "The greedy dream Wolf King's illusion can indeed change time. I think we have been in the illusion for a long time." Xiao Chen's expression had already calmed down. At this moment, he could already accept this fact. He smiled gently and said, "Stop guessing. Looking at the strength of the huge waves, I can already confirm this. It looks like we will have to stay on this Qianren Island for a period of time." Chapter 390. When Yu Chenxi saw Xiao Chen's calm expression, astonishment flashed on his face. Xiao Chen, you do not seem worried at all. Xiao Chen found a rock to lean on and took out a spirit herb for treating injuries from the herb garden from the universe ring. Then, he took out a small knife and skinned it. He said, there is no point in worrying. Even a martial monarch could not break through the huge waves. What can I do? I will just wait for another 2 years. I have enough medial-grade spirit stones to cultivate. To cultivators, the thing they should not be afraid of is loneliness. Some of those sages would be in closed-door cultivation for several years or even decades. So, when you think about it, it is not a big deal. After he skinned the spirit herb, Xiao Chen gently bit off a piece. Instantly, a dense medicinal energy flowed into his body. He used his essence to guide it, and the medicinal energy quickly flowed into the horrifying wound on his chest. ZZ. With the nourishment of the medicinal energy, the wound on Xiao Chen's chest gave off a numbing feeling. The festering flesh started wriggling and quickly formed a scar. The medicinal energy continued to permeate into his 2 broken ribs. New bones started to appear at the broken areas. Soon, they would be able to truly fuse back together. A 600-year-old jadeite needle fruit is indeed good stuff, Xiao Chen thought to himself. Just a small bite has such a huge effect. After I eat it, coupled with my physique, I should be able to recover in 1 night. After taking another bite of the jadeite needle fruit, Xiao Chen looked at Yu Chenxi and said, furthermore, I believe that you have a way to inform the Supreme Sky Sect. You might be able to leave earlier than I expected. Yu Chenxi was mildly startled. Xiao Chen had guessed correctly. He really had a way to inform the Supreme Sky Sect. Hence, she was not too worried. However, when Yu Chenxi saw Xiao Chen's calm and unconcerned expression and how he was even eating and talking to her at the same time, Yu Chenxi felt somewhat displeased. With a flip of his palm, a wound appeared on his palm. A small white bird slowly came out of his palm. Soon, its entire body came out and stood on his palm. The white bird was about the size of a sparrow. Rather than calling it white, it was more like an illusory color. As it stood on his palm, it looked like it had merged with the air. It was faintly discernible and looked very blurry. Xiao Chen asked doubtfully, what is this? Yu Chenxi smiled and said, this is a hummingbird. Every disciple of the Supreme Sky Sect brings one with them when they go out on experiential training. Its body exists between reality and illusion. No barrier can stop it. With this message, the Supreme Sky Sect will send an expert to bring us out in 3 months at the latest. After Yu Chenxi wrote a piece of paper, she stuffed it into the hummingbird's mouth and tossed it high into the air. In the blink of an eye, the hummingbird flew a few hundred meters. Before the two's eyes, the hummingbird mysteriously passed through the obstruction of the huge waves and disappeared from their sight. Xiao Chen looked at the huge waves in the distance and muttered to himself, martial monarchs will not be able to break through these huge waves unless a martial sage comes. Even a martial sage will make a move for her. It looks like Yu Chenxi's position in the Supreme Sky Sect is not as simple as an ordinary genius disciple. Yu Chenxi slowly withdrew his gaze and looked at Xiao Chen. He said, no matter what, it is all thanks to you that I managed to obtain the daybreak flower this time. I, Yu Chenxi, owe you a favor. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and did not say anything. 3 days later, with the help of the jadeite needle fruit, the wound on Xiao Chen's chest had completely healed. This kind of injury, which did not injure his internal organs, heart, or lungs, was no longer a threat to Xiao Chen's current physique. Even without the assistance of spirit herbs, he would recover in less than 10 days. With Bai's help, Xiao Chen removed the bandages. Secret treasures had the ability to recover automatically. The clear wind robes and the inferior grade inner vest were already as good as new. However, the spiritual energy they contained had decreased, and their lifespan had decreased as well. After tossing away the bandages, Xiao Chen prepared to take inventory of the burial items that the Savannah King had left behind. The burial items of a future emperor Wu would definitely be good. Coincidentally, Yu Chenxi had decided to absorb the energy of the daybreak flower to comprehend the morning sun incantation. Xiaoqin gave Xiaoqin some private space. There were 8 burial items of various sizes that the Savannah King had left behind. In this fortuitous encounter on Qianren Island, hundreds and thousands of cultivators would be very satisfied with just one burial item. If they knew that Xiaoqin had snatched all of them away, what kind of expression would they have? Xiaoqin tossed out the 8 burial items from his spatial ring in one go. He tossed them all to the ground and started to take inventory with an excited expression on his face. Among the 8 burial items, there were 3 secret manuals and 3 secret treasures. There were also 2 things that Xiaoqin could not figure out. Xiaoqin was most interested in secret manuals. He immediately picked up a secret manual and flipped through it. He read softly, Flowing Light Sword Art, a peak earth-ranked cultivation technique for swordsmen. There is a total of 15 layers. After reaching great perfection, it will allow the swordsman's dantian to produce a continuous stream of sword qi. This was a supreme cultivation technique for swordsmen. It could allow a swordsman to produce sword qi in their body. Xiaoqin had never heard of it before. He thought that it should be extraordinary. Furthermore, it was a cultivation technique tailored for swordsmen. Its value was immeasurable. To a swordsman, it was probably even better than an inferior grade heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Unfortunately, Xiaoqin was a bladesman. A bladesman and a swordsman were 2 different branches. He could not practice it. If only it were a saber art. Although the Purple Thunder divine incantation was strong, it was not tailored for bladesmen. It could not produce saber qi in the body. Xiaoqin felt somewhat disappointed. He casually handed the Flowing Light Sword Art to Bai. He smiled and said, "Bai, this is for you. When you have nothing to do, take a good look at it." Bai received the Flowing Light Sword Art and smiled gently. "Thank you, elder brother Xiaoqin. Bai is going to become even more powerful." Xiaoqin picked up the second secret manual and flipped through it again. When he saw the words on the cover, he slowly read, Firmament Body Tempering Art, Inferior Grade Heaven Ranked Body Tempering Secret Manual. One's vital qi needs to reach 150,000 kilograms of force in order to cultivate it. This is an ancient sect. Xiaoqin's face lit up in joy. There was finally a secret manual for him to use. The Dragon and Tiger Body Tempering Art was only a peak earth-ranked body tempering secret technique. After Xiaoqin cultivated Dragon Tendon Tiger Bone, his strength reached 250,000 kilograms of force. There was no longer any possibility of improving it. Coincidentally, the Firmament Body Tempering Art could be used by Xiaoqin. As long as he could cultivate 25,000 kilograms of force, he would be able to cultivate it. With the help of the many body-tempering spirit herbs in his ring, this would not be difficult. Xiaoqin sorted out his emotions and continued reading. There were some notes written by the Savannah King at the bottom of the cover. Only now did Xiaoqin discover that the Savannah King was a cultivator who specialized in tempering the physical body and became a martial sage. It turned out that when the Savannah King was young, his cultivation and talent were very poor. His cultivation of essence had been very slow. He barely managed to become an inferior grade martial saint at the age of 30. Such talent would not even cause a ripple in the Tianwu continent. However, the proud Savannah King was extremely dissatisfied. Later on, the Savannah King had a fortuitous encounter and obtained this firmament body tempering art. After that, he made up his mind to cripple his cultivation and cultivate his physical body, using strength to prove his Tao. The firmament body tempering art was a body tempering cultivation technique of a mysterious sect in the ancient era. The outer disciples of that legendary sect could easily achieve more than 50,000 kilograms of force with a punch. The inner disciples could achieve more than 150,000 kilograms of force with a punch. As for the inner disciples, core disciples, and outer elders, they could achieve more than 500,000 kilograms of force with a casual punch. When they kicked out, the horrifying force would allow them to leap a kilometer in an instant. Furthermore, they specialized in vital qi. The sect had many martial techniques that used vital qi. The effects of using vital qi were no weaker than using essence. Shaoqin closed the secret manual and muttered, "I did not expect there to be such a glorious sect in the past." A casual punch could achieve more than 500,000 kilograms of force. Even a martial monarch would not dare to receive it head-on. It looks like choosing to temper the physical body was the right choice. After putting away the secret manual, Shaoqin started to look at the third secret manual. He discovered that the third secret manual was a body-tempering cultivation technique that the Savannah King left behind. The cultivation experience of a half-step Emperor Wu. This is more precious than any cultivation technique or martial technique. For a long time, I have not had a true master to guide me. This cultivation experience can be considered as half a master. Shaoqin could no longer contain his joy. He said this excitedly as he put away the Savannah King's cultivation experience. Then, he continued to look at the remaining burial items. There were 3 extraordinary secret treasures. Among the 3 secret treasures, Shaoqin casually picked up the jade pendant. He discovered that it was similar to the jade pendant around his neck. It was also a defensive secret treasure. However, its defense was much stronger. Based on the spiritual energy fluctuations, it should be a peak inferior grade secret treasure. Shaoqin thought for a while before handing the jade pendant to Bai. He already had a similar jade pendant, so there was no need to do so. Shaoqin picked up the second secret treasure. It was a small sword the size of a palm. The blade was forged from an unknown metal. There were many talisman scripts carved on it. The spiritual energy on the sword was very dense, much denser than that of the jade pendant. The blade was very sharp as well. Shaoqin checked it and discovered that it was actually an inferior grade medial grade secret treasure. Shaoqin did not know what use this small sword had. He removed the spiritual sense left behind by the predecessor and branded it with his own mark. Xiao. When Shaoqian's spiritual sense filled the small sword in his palm made a cut on his palm with a so sound. Then, it slowly merged into his palm. Shaoqin did not feel any discomfort. When the sword merged into his palm, it felt like it was part of his flesh and blood, a part of his body. It was just that it had returned to him at this moment. When the sword completely entered his palm, the wound on his palm immediately healed. His skin glowed white, there was nothing wrong with it. However, Shaoqin suddenly felt a surging and strong energy leaping about in his right palm. This energy did not belong to him, but he could easily control it. With just a thought, Shaoqin could easily release it. He stood up and looked at a mountain in the distance. Then, Shaoqin raised 2 fingers on his right hand and pointed forward. Xiao. The small sword in Shaoqian's palm carried a horrifying energy as it burst out of his fingers and shot towards the mountain a kilometer away. Chapter 391. Boom. 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 The instant the small sword left his body, Shaoqin heard half of the mountain shatter. From the waist up, the 1,000-meter-tall mountain seemed to have completely shattered. Wang. 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 However, it was not over yet. Suddenly, countless cracks appeared in the remaining half of the mountain. Countless rocks fell down. After a short while, the remaining half of the mountain was completely shattered. The 1,000-meter-tall mountain had actually been blasted to the ground by the small sword. Shaoqin was dumbfounded as he watched all this. He had not expected the small sword to be so mighty. He muttered, "Is this the might of a medial grade offensive secret treasure? If caught off guard, it might even be able to kill a half-step martial monarch in an instant." The small sword whistled through the air. It no longer had any luster, looking very illusory. Then, it flew back to Shaoqian's palm. Strands of weak essence flowed from Shaoqian's body to his palm, slowly charging this small sword. It looked like it would be impossible for the small sword to recover its previous strength in a short period. However, since it was so mighty, Shaoqin did not need the small sword to attack continuously. This small sword can be considered my true trump card. I have to give it a name. Let's call it the palm sword. Xiao Qin said softly. He casually chose a more realistic name. The smile on his face did not fade for a long time. The might of the palm sword was simply too great. This was the first time Xiao Qin had the confidence to fight against half-step martial monarchs. He could not help but be happy. There was still one last secret treasure. However, it gave Xiao Qin a headache. It was a heavy black helmet. Clearly, it was a defensive medial-grade secret treasure. Xiao Qin weighed the helmet in his hand. When he saw the two horns on the helmet, he immediately lost interest. Not to mention its appearance, just the weight of this helmet was more than 100 kilograms. Unless one was a heavy armored knight on the battlefield or a barbarian warrior, no one would have a good impression of this helmet, no matter how strong its defense was. Casually tossing the helmet into the universe ring, Xiao Qin looked at the last two items. They were the same. It was a bright pearl. The light from the pearl was neither dim nor dazzling. It was very moderate. Xiao Qin sensed a vast and pure yuan energy that made his heart palpitate. His intuition told him that this was a great Tao. Among the funerary objects of the Savannah King, these two pearls were definitely the most valuable. Even a few secret treasures and secret manuals combined would not be as valuable as these pearls. However, the depressing thing was that Xiao Qin's knowledge was limited. He did not know what it was, so he could only toss it into a corner of his universe ring. Boom boom boom. At this moment, in a secluded corner of the Qianren Island, a peak that was also 3,000 meters tall began to crack. That mountain was so huge that when it shattered, it kept shaking. Even the ground was shaking slightly. Huge waves surged on the surface of the sea around Qianren Island, rolling up and down continuously. Xiao Qin looked over and saw a dazzling golden light in the distance. Countless tyrannical fist winds exploded. The 1,000-meter-tall mountain shrank at a visible rate under the frenzied fist winds. 1 punch, 2 punches, 3 punches, 4 punches, 10 punches. After 10 punches, the 3,000-meter-tall mountain was mostly shaved off. All that was left was a bare mound. When the light scattered, Yu Chenxi's figure slowly appeared. Then, he landed firmly on the ground. Xiao Qin had to use a secret treasure to flatten a mountain. However, Yu Chenxi relied on his tyrannical strength to blast away most of the mountain. This gap was rather large. Furthermore, Yu Chenxi was not the peak genius of this continent. In the previous 5-nation youth competition, he was only ranked in the top 50. This made Xiao Qin feel a chill in his heart. If Yu Chenxi was already so strong, how strong would the top 10 geniuses be? Xiao Qin withdrew his gaze and entered deep thought. He said softly, "There is still more than a year until the next 5-nation youth competition. I might have time to try it out." Xiao Qin had never doubted his talent. He also did not think that he was weaker than others. All he lacked was time. Compared to those peak geniuses, Xiao Qin had started too late. Even though he was trying so hard to catch up, he still had a large gap in cultivation. After Yu Chenxi obtained the Daybreak Flower, it should not be surprising for her to break through to superior grade Martial King. Furthermore, this Yu Chenxi was younger than Xiao Qin. If she already had such a cultivation, then wouldn't the other geniuses be peak superior grade Martial Kings or half-step Martial Monarchs? I have to advance to Martial King quickly. Xiao Qin felt a sense of urgency in his heart. This fortuitous encounter on Qianren Island is a great opportunity for me to catch up. After giving instructions to Bai, Xiao Qin found a desolate place on the island. He planned to enter closed-door cultivation for real. Xiao Qin took out the spirit herbs that could increase cultivation from the universe ring. He counted them carefully and found a total of 28 stalks. They were all 500-year-old and above spirit herbs. Xiao Qin was not in a rush to consume these spirit herbs. Instead, he continued to consolidate his cultivation as a superior grade martial saint. He nurtured the qi whirlpool in his dantian, building a dam to prevent the flood from happening. After cultivating for 7 days, Xiaochen suddenly opened his eyes. He had already stabilized his cultivation as a superior grade martial saint. The purple qi whirlpool was also nurtured until it was very resilient. The qi whirlpool should be able to endure it now. It is time to consume these spirit herbs that can increase cultivation. Xiaochen took a deep breath and chose a 500-year-old snow ginseng from the pile of spirit herbs in front of him. If a 500-year-old snow ginseng could completely absorb its medicinal energy, theoretically, it could increase a cultivator's attack power by 10 years. However, not many people knew the correct way to consume the snow ginseng. It was very difficult to ensure that the medicinal energy would not leak out during the process. Hence, it was difficult to achieve the effect of 10 years of cultivation. Normally, it would be pretty good to have 6 or 7 years of cultivation. 8 years of cultivation would be the peak. 9 years of cultivation would be extremely lucky. However, the compendium of cultivation had detailed records of these spirit herbs. Xiaochen knew how to consume this snow ginseng. Xiaochen held the snow ginseng in his hand and observed it for a while. Compared to regular ginseng, the snow ginseng was much stronger than ordinary ginseng. Compared to a regular ginseng, the snow ginseng was covered in a layer of frost. When he held it in his hand, he could feel a bone-chilling cold. Furthermore, it was much larger than regular ginseng. Xiaochen held the snow ginseng with one hand and heated it up slightly. The frost on the surface of the snow ginseng melted into liquid and seeped into the snow ginseng. This frost was the essence of the snow ginseng. Many people did not know this and lost a large portion of the snow ginseng's medicinal energy. Finally, Xiaochen infused his essence into the snow ginseng and mixed it with the frost liquid. Xiaochen's movements were very gentle and careful. As long as he damaged the skin of the snow ginseng, all the medicinal energy would immediately leak out. 10 minutes later, the insides of the snow ginseng had completely melted. It looked like the skin of the snow ginseng was wrapped in clear liquid. It was very plump and soft. Xiaochen smiled faintly and placed the root of the snow ginseng into his mouth. Then, he used his teeth to bite off a root. Qi! Qi! The snow ginseng filled to the brim with spirit herb liquid found an outlet. Immediately, it gushed into Xiaochen's mouth like a gushing fountain. The medicinal liquid was cool and crisp. A fragrance assaulted the nose. It was incomparably delicious. Xiaochen's entire mouth was filled with this fragrance. All the medicinal energy was absorbed by Xiaochen. Boom! The surging medicinal energy flowed down his throat and quickly poured into Xiaochen's body. It was like a gushing river, surging through his meridians. Xiaochen's narrow meridians were filled to the brim with medicinal energy. Every time the medicinal energy flowed, he felt some pain. Xiaochen clenched his teeth and endured bitterly. Fortunately, Xiaochen's physical body was at small perfection. He had dragon tendons and tiger bones. His meridians were much stronger than those of regular cultivators. If other cultivators consumed this snow ginseng, they would not dare to swallow it all in one go like Xiaochen. Otherwise, there was a high chance that they would explode. The vast medicinal energy circulated through Xiaochen's meridians. The energy became increasingly ferocious and surging. Finally, it rushed towards the purple qi whirlpool in his dantian. Bang! Bang! The qi whirlpool was like a dam welcoming a ferocious flood. As the flood crashed into it, loud sounds came from Xiaochen's body. Under this intense shock, his internal organs trembled. Xiaochen's complexion paled as he felt intense pain. The vast medicinal energy crashed into the purple qi whirlpool continuously. The resilient qi whirlpool seemed like it could collapse at any moment. Although Xiaochen had expected the medicinal energy to be vast, when he truly faced it, the medicinal energy of the 500-year-old snow ginseng still surpassed his expectations. The space inside the qi whirlpool was already filled with medicinal energy. Furthermore, there was still a lot of medicinal energy pouring into the meridians outside. The situation was dire. If he could not digest this medicinal energy, the qi whirlpool might burst. Maintaining his calm, Xiaochen slowly circulated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. The Qi whirlpool started spinning slowly under the control of his thoughts. Although the speed was not fast, the Qi whirlpool finally moved. Immediately, a large amount of medicinal energy was absorbed by the Qi whirlpool, making it even more resilient. Xiao! Xiao! As the Qi whirlpool absorbed the medicinal energy, the purple Qi whirlpool spun faster. In the end, it was as fast as when Xiaochen cultivated. Only now did Xiaochen heave a sigh of relief. His earlier efforts were not in vain. Otherwise, the purple Qi whirlpool would have collapsed under the impact of the medicinal energy. As the Qi whirlpool spun faster, the absorption of the medicinal energy became faster as well. Xiaochen could clearly feel his strength increasing continuously. All the pores in Xiaochen's body opened up, and a huge energy spread throughout his body. Even his blood could not help but surge. A 500-year-old snow ginseng could increase a cultivator's cultivation by 10 years after consuming it. It was impossible to digest all the medicinal energy in one go. In the end, it stabilized. On the contrary, Xiaochen took the initiative to slow down the rate of absorption. Stability was the most important thing. The faster his cultivation realm rose, the more stable he had to be. After a total of 7 days, Xiaochen finally completely refined the medicinal energy of the snow ginseng. Xiaochen opened his eyes, and 2 purple lights flashed in them. His pitch-black pupils became even more profound, unfathomable. Chapter 392. Xiaochen casually tossed aside the snow ginseng skin in his hand and took out another 500-year-old spirit herb. He muttered, "This is the 100th spirit fruit. Its effects are much weaker than the snow ginseng. It can only increase my cultivation by 5 years. However, 5 years is already pretty good." After consuming the snow ginseng, Xiaochen's Qi whirlpool had grown several times larger. The amount of essence it could contain had increased by 50%. Furthermore, with his previous experience, consuming and digesting the 100th spirit fruit was not as dangerous as before. 2 days later, Xiaochen completely absorbed it. In the following month, Xiaochen consumed natural treasures that increased his cultivation. The amount of essence in his body had already increased to a horrifying level. Xiaochen's current essence was comparable to that of a medial-grade martial king. If he consumed all the spirit herbs, his essence would surpass that of a medial-grade martial king and rival that of a superior-grade martial king. After 1 month, Xiaochen held the final 500-year-old spirit herb in his hand. He frowned slightly and said softly, "Toward the end, the effects of this spirit herb are getting worse. Originally, this spirit herb could increase my cultivation by 10 years. Now, it can't even reach 5 years. This was a problem of resistance to spirit herbs. Xiaochen had encountered this before in the underground world. Because he had consumed too many spirit herbs, he had developed a strong resistance. Unless Xiaochen found spirit herbs older than 1,000 years, it would be difficult for his cultivation to increase explosively. Spirit herbs younger than 1,000 years were no longer of much use to him. Xiaochen collected his thoughts and smiled faintly, "I should be satisfied. Now, my total essence is close to that of a superior-grade martial king. Once I advance to martial king, the quality of my essence will increase significantly. At that time, those cultivators who have been martial kings for many years will not have much of an advantage over me." After consuming the final spirit herb, Xiaochen used only half a day to completely digest the medicinal energy. After another week, with the support of a vast amount of essence, Xiaochen naturally advanced to peak superior-grade martial saint without any obstructions. As Xiaochen's cultivation advanced, the number of minor meridians in his body expanded significantly. Now, there were only 2 minor meridians left for the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer. It was time to break open the other 2 minor meridians and gain the ability to cultivate the 6th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. At that time, his cultivation realm and cultivation technique would advance at the same time. When a martial artist was breaking through a major realm, it would take a long time. This was because the advancement of a great realm often required not only the support of sufficient yuan qi, but also a trace of opportunity. Without the right opportunity, one would always be infinitely close to becoming a martial king. Lu Riyue had once told Xiao Chen all her valuable experiences of advancing to martial king. Thus, Xiao Chen deeply understood the importance of opportunities. Fortunately, he had the heaven-ranked cultivation technique, the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. The advancement of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation could be considered an opportunity. After staying at peak Martial Saint for 2 days, Xiao Chen made all his preparations. He started to try to open the 2 minor meridians. The pure and vast lightning attributed essence formed a small cycle in the 9 major meridians in his body. Then, it slowly followed the complicated minor meridians and made a large cycle. Xiao Chen was not in a rush to return this essence to his dantian. He stopped the essence in the middle of a major meridian. There were countless minor meridians around this major meridian, spreading out like tree branches. Xiao Chen found the tightly shut minor meridian and ground the essence into a sharp awl. Then, he slowly pierced it in. See! The minor meridian had just opened a little when Xiao Chen felt a heart-wrenching pain. He could not help but take in a deep breath of cold air. However, Xiao Chen did not stop. Pain was unavoidable when he forcefully opened a minor meridian. Xiao Chen had already made preparations for this long ago. The minor meridian opened bit by bit. The intense pain caused the veins on Xiao Chen's forehead to bulge. Beads of sweat flowed continuously. After working hard for a night, he finally managed to open 1/10 of this minor meridian. After resting for a while, Xiao Chen continued to work without stopping. Xiao Chen did not have much time. Compared to the other genius cultivators, he had started much later. The difference in their cultivations had already left him far behind. Xiao Chen needed time more than anyone else. The gains from this fortuitous encounter only slightly narrowed the gap between them. After all, those genius cultivators all had the backing of a large sect. They did not lack spirit pills, miraculous medicines, or natural treasures. Even if it was painful, arduous, or dangerous, Xiao Chen had to persevere. He could not afford to slack off. After half a month, with Xiao Chen's hard work, he finally managed to open these 2 minor meridians. The newly formed minor meridians were too weak. They were not suitable for the flow of essence and could not be used for cultivation. However, Xiao Chen had made preparations long ago. Previously, he had picked several kinds of good spirit herbs for nourishing the meridians in the herb garden. After another 7 days, with the nourishment of the spirit herbs, Xiao Chen's 2 newly formed minor meridians were no different from the other minor meridians. He could now cultivate normally. The moon was as round as a plate, hanging high in the night sky. It shone down a quiet radiance. Xiao Chen slowly got up from the stone block and looked at the bright moon in the sky. Then, he took out a golden spirit core from the universe ring. This golden spirit core the size of a basketball was the one he had killed in Savage Forest. It was the Golden Lion King with the bloodline of an ancient mutated beast. Xiao Chen still felt that he was lacking something to advance to Martial King until he remembered the spirit core of the Golden Lion King. Only now did Xiao Chen realize that he still lacked an extremely strong external force. When he cultivated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation to the 6th layer, he would be able to use it together with the essence in his body to break through to Martial King in one go. The golden spirit core that had been lying dormant in Xiao Chen's hand for more than a year was finally going to be put to good use. Advancing from superior grade Martial Saint to Martial King within 3 months was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Most people would not even dare to think about it. However, Xiao Chen wanted to give it a try. When he felt the incomparably pure energy in the golden spirit core, he said indifferently, "I prepared for more than 2 months. I used spirit herbs to increase my strength, suffered a lot, and forcefully opened my minor meridians. All these were for this day." Xiao Chen could only succeed, he could not afford to fail. Compared to those geniuses who had a sect backing them and a peak master, he did not have the capital to fail. Once he failed, he would forever lose the chance to catch up. The moon was round and full, the night was deep and quiet. Xiaochen found a place with relatively dense spiritual energy in the surroundings. He sat cross-legged on a huge rock. He crossed his hands, and the golden spirit core the size of a basketball floated quietly above his palms. The spiritual energy in the spirit core floated around, but it did not scatter. It was being guided by Xiaochen's spiritual sense. Xiaochen took a deep breath and slowly spat out a mouthful of white qi. This qi was like a sword and did not scatter for a long time. Success or failure, it all depended on this moment. When everything was ready, Xiaochen closed his eyes resolutely. The huge qi whirlpool in his dantian spun quickly. Xiaochen silently circulated the purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer. The surrounding lightning-attributed spiritual energy quickly poured into his body. It flowed through his pores and into his meridians before returning to his dantian. Di-da. 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 The lightning-attributed essence liquid quickly formed and dripped into the purple qi whirlpool. The purple qi whirlpool was quickly filled with lightning-attributed energy. This was the first step of cultivating the purple thunder divine incantation, condensing qi. It absorbed all the lightning-attributed spiritual energy into the dantian. However, it was not just absorbing it. It also had to be refined continuously, turning the spiritual energy into even purer essence. The purple liquid in the qi whirlpool also spun quickly. Xiaochen was now using the secret technique of the 6th layer to refine spiritual energy. Hence, the speed was much faster than usual. Qi. Qi. As the cyclone rotated inside and outside at the same time, countless electric currents appeared out of nowhere in the surrounding air, crackling and flashing non-stop. In the dark night, it was like a tiny bolt of lightning flashing by. It illuminated Xiaochen's face occasionally with a purple light. Boom! Suddenly, the two whirlpools stopped spinning at the same time. The purple liquid in the qi whirlpool exploded, and its color became even denser. However, the amount decreased by about half. Originally, the spiritual energy could fill the entire qi whirlpool. Now, only a small portion was left. This was because all the spiritual energy in the surroundings had been converted into essence. The time required for this was twice as fast as before. The purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer is indeed powerful, Xiaochen thought joyfully. If this is the case, my cultivation speed will be doubled in the future. However, this was only a small success. Next, he had to complete a minor cycle and a major cycle, completing an internal and external cycle. Only then would he be able to advance the purple thunder divine incantation's 5th layer to the 6th layer. Xiaochen took a deep breath and continued to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation. The dense purple liquid in the qi whirlpool quickly surged out, heading for the 9 major meridians in his body. Hu! Hu! The pure and dense essence flowed quickly in the 9 major meridians. It was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins. Xiaochen found it hard to control it. What a fast speed! Xiaochen was startled. The faster the speed, the higher the efficiency of his cultivation. This made Xiaochen feel even more anticipation for the purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer. However, at this moment, Xiaochen had to be even more careful. If the purple thunder divine incantation broke free of his control, this breakthrough would end in failure. No matter what, the first minor cycle had to be completed successfully. Otherwise, the subsequent major cycles would be even faster. If he could not even handle a minor cycle, then he would not be able to control a major cycle. Xiaochen sank his consciousness into it. His will was like a rein, firmly controlling this wild horse, not letting it break free of his control. Under Xiaochen's control, the minor cycle finally completed a cycle with some difficulty. Boom! 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 When the essence returned to the qi whirlpool started to circulate once again. A huge electric whirlpool appeared in the sky above Xiaochen's head. That electric whirlpool did not circulate for now. It only appeared in the night sky. Lightning flashed and thunder roared around it, illuminating the entire Qianren Island's night sky. Yu Chenxi, who was chatting with Bai, noticed the strange changes in the sky. His expression immediately changed. He muttered, "This is a mysterious phenomenon. A mysterious phenomenon will only appear when a heaven-ranked cultivation technique advances." Could it be that Xiaoqin cultivates a heaven-ranked cultivation technique? Chapter 393. When Bai saw the electric whirlpool that appeared out of nowhere, a grave expression appeared on her cute face. She was no longer the little spirit fox that did not know anything. Now that she had successfully transformed, she had started cultivating. Such a huge mysterious phenomenon would definitely be accompanied by great danger. She could not help but ask worriedly, "Elder sister Yu, will elder brother Xiaoqin be fine? Should we go and take a look?" Yu Chenxi looked at Bai's charming face and thought to himself, "This Xiaoqin is really lucky. He has a bad temper, but he still has a pretty girl following him so loyally. Bai, don't worry. He is now at a critical juncture. If we get too close, it will not be good for him. I believe he will succeed," Yu Chenxi said with a gentle smile. When Bai heard this, she nodded her head and said, "Bai believes that elder brother Xiaoqin will succeed as well." The mysterious phenomenon outside did not affect Xiaoqin at all. He was currently focused on the qi whirlpool. Originally, there was only a small portion of the purple liquid. After one small cycle, it quickly grew to half. With the help of the spirit herbs, Xiaoqian's essence base was already very vast. Now, with just one small cycle, it was like the qi whirlpool was filled to half. This made Xiaoqin very excited. A small cycle is already so powerful. I wonder what a great cycle will be like, Xiaoqin thought to himself. Then, he controlled his essence to make a great cycle. This was the most crucial step in his breakthrough. Hu Qi. Hu Qi. As he circulated his mental energy, the essence liquid in the qi whirlpool shot out. It was so fast that Xiaoqin could not react in time. If the previous small cycle was like a wild horse, then it was like a sports car. It was on a completely different level. This is not good. If this continues, I will not be able to control the flow of essence. When the essence becomes chaotic, not only will my breakthrough fail, but it will also result in serious internal injuries. Xiaoqian's expression changed greatly as he thought to himself in fear. It was like a person who had been driving a carriage all year round was suddenly given a sports car. After getting used to the speed of the carriage, it would be very difficult to control the speed of the sports car. Calm down, I must calm down at this time. Xiaoqian's extraordinary state of mind finally worked again at this time. His frightened and uneasy heart quickly calmed down. Xiaoqian's mind suddenly lit up. He calmed down and finally thought of a way to deal with it. Actually, he had been thinking in the wrong direction from the start. It was simply impossible to suddenly control this surging essence. The Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 5th layer was completely different from the 6th layer. With such a huge leap, Xiaoqin believed that no one could grasp it in one go. If that was the case, wouldn't it mean that no one could cultivate the 6th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation? Obviously, that was not the case. What he needed to do now was not to completely control the flying vital energy, but to control the direction of its flow. He allowed it to smoothly follow the route of the 6th layer and complete a great cycle. Given this, Xiaoqin suddenly felt enlightened. Every time his essence soared, he would not be able to withstand it. Every time the essence was about to go down the wrong path, his will would turn into a gentle force and push it back to the right path. However, while it sounded simple, it was actually very difficult. This was because the speed at which the essence circulated was simply too fast. If he wanted to grasp the right timing every time, it would be very taxing on his mind. He could not afford to be careless. Rumble. When the essence completed a great cycle, the huge electric whirlpool above Xiao Chen's head also started spinning quickly, sucking in all the lightning-attributed spiritual energy within a kilometer. Lightning flashed and clouds churned for a kilometer. The flickering electric light illuminated the sky above Qianren Island like it was daytime. Under Xiao Chen's careful control, a great cycle was almost completed. During this time, the essence nearly went through the wrong meridian several times. However, Xiao Chen managed to pull it back in advance. Xiao Chen felt his heart beating several times faster than usual. The process was simply too dangerous. Bang! The essence finally gathered in the dantian and exploded in the qi whirlpool. The surging essence liquid fluctuated for a long time before it stopped. The purple liquid slowly piled up, and soon, the qi whirlpool was filled to the brim. Xiao Chen felt a swelling sensation. After the purple liquid filled the qi whirlpool to the brim, it actually forcefully expanded the qi whirlpool. The purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer, completed. Xiao Chen thought excitedly in his heart. Then, he opened his eyes and 2 beams of purple light flashed in the night sky, illuminating everything within a kilometer. Before Xiao Chen could react, the horrifying electric whirlpool in the sky entered his right eye with a "so" sound. This sudden change stunned Xiao Chen. However, he did not panic. This was because the purple thunder true fire had absorbed all the energy in the whirlpool, not leaving a single drop behind. Xiao Chen was not in a rush to test the might of the purple thunder true fire. He closed his eyes again and continued to circulate the qi whirlpool. The golden spirit core in his palm spun quickly. The pure and vast golden spiritual energy, which was even stronger than a superior grade spirit stone, was being absorbed by Xiao Chen. The golden spirit core shrank at a visible rate. Xiao Chen absorbed all the spiritual energy in one go. He wanted to make use of this final external force to break through the restraints of a martial saint in one go and become a martial king. When Yu Chenxi saw the whirlpool disappear from a distance, he heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that Xiao Chen's cultivation technique had advanced successfully. However, his expression turned grave after that. A strong aura came from Xiao Chen's body. That energy was extremely vast and it was still rising continuously. Yu Chenxi frowned slightly and said sullenly, "Could this fellow be thinking of using this opportunity to break through to Martial King? This is too crazy." As the golden energy continued to pour in, the energy gathered in his dantian became stronger. Xiao Chen could clearly feel the barrier in front of this energy. This is the final hurdle to breaking through to Martial King. I have to break through it in one go and shatter it. No one can stop me from advancing to Martial King. Xiao Chen thought to himself and increased the speed at which he absorbed the golden spirit core. Break! When the golden spirit core was completely absorbed, Xiao Chen shouted loudly. He used this tyrannical energy to circulate all the essence in his body and charge at the barrier. Ka-xie. A crisp sound came from Xiao Chen's body. The barrier in front of Martial Saint was completely broken through without any obstruction. A huge energy instantly filled his entire body. Suddenly, Xiao Chen's body soared into the air. He was truly flying, he did not use the gravity spell to fly. Xiao Chen opened his eyes, his face was filled with joy. After 2 months of hard work and countless hardships, he finally stepped into the Martial King realm after putting his life on the line. Roar! Xiao Chen's qi and blood surged, it was like he had an inexhaustible amount of energy. Even his blood seemed to be burning. Is this the strength of a Martial King? Feeling agitated, Xiao Chen could not help but let out a long roar. His roar was like thunder, reverberating around Qianren Island for a long time. He actually succeeded. Yu Chenxi's eyes were filled with astonishment. In 2 months, Xiao Chen broke through from superior grade martial saint to martial king. Ordinary people might not be able to achieve this in their entire lives. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen used only 2 months to do so. If news of this were to spread, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. It looks like I did not misjudge him. He is definitely the kind of person that first martial uncle is looking for. Xiao Chen collected his emotions and looked around. When he saw Yu Chenxi 1,000 meters away, he smiled faintly. A strong fighting spirit immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's eyes. His aura soared into the sky and pressed down on Yu Chenxi. Yu Chenxi smiled gently and said in a low voice, "Do you want to fight?" Coincidentally, my morning sun incantation has made a breakthrough. I have not had a suitable opponent to test it on. Boom! An aura even stronger than Xiao Chen's soared into the sky. Yu Chenxi's figure flashed and he quickly flew towards Xiao Chen. Seeing Yu Chenxi soar into the sky, Xiao Chen smiled gently. The fierce purple flame in his right eye formed a huge whirlpool. It seemed like it sucked in the heavens and earth. Shoot! Xiao Chen shouted and a purple flame spewed out from his right eye. The purple light flickered and dyed the night sky green. Everywhere the purple flame passed, it seemed like even the air was burned to ashes, leaving behind a huge black void. What a strong flame! A trace of astonishment flashed in Yu Chenxi's eyes. However, he did not panic. He clenched his fist tightly and a boundless energy gathered. His aura soared continuously. When Yu Chenxi's aura reached its peak, she shouted and punched ferociously. A dazzling light burst out from his fist. It was like the morning sun breaking through the night sky, completely dispelling the surrounding darkness. Boom! The tyrannical fist wind struck the incoming flame violently. When the two forces clashed, they did not give way to each other. A shockwave spread out in all directions. Chi! 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 Some of the taller mountains in the surroundings were struck by the shockwave and shattered, filling the night sky with rubble. Xiao Chen did not expect a casual strike from the Purple Thunder True Fire after the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation reached the 6th layer would have such might. Even Yu Chenxi's Morning Sun fist could not break it. Xiao Chen thought joyfully. The Morning Sun fist was one of the few fist techniques famous for being tyrannical. A regular inferior grade heaven-ranked martial technique could not compare to it in terms of pure strength. The two forces clashed for a long time before they slowly scattered. Xiao Chen placed his right hand on the saber hilt and drew the lunar shadow saber at lightning speed. Glittering wukuei. A dazzling purple saber chi appeared from nowhere. The dense light on the saber chi was like a piercing aurora in the night sky. This was the benefit of advancing to Martial King. His essence was even denser. The quality of his essence was double that of a martial saint. Only at this moment did Xiao Chen bring out the true might of the wukuei saber technique, an ancient martial technique. What a surging essence! The amount of essence he has should be no weaker than a regular superior grade martial king. Yu Chenxi squinted his eyes. When the purple saber chi was 1 meter away from him, he punched the tip of the saber chi. Dang! Xiao Chen's delicate and fair palm did not seem to be made of flesh and blood. When the saber chi struck it, it gave off a melodious sound. Chapter 394. Ka-xie. Ka-xie. The purple saber chi was like a saber blade. It shattered into pieces and fell to the ground. The two exchanged another 10 moves. Xiao Chen discovered that even though he had advanced to Martial King, the gap between him and Yu Chenxi had not shrunk. It looked like with the help of the Daybreak Flower, Yu Chenxi's strength had increased qualitatively. Like before, Yu Chenxi did not need to use his state. Who? After an hour, Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and stopped fighting. The situation was the same as before. If this were a battle to the death, Xiao Chen would have used all his trump cards, the palm sword, the 8th move of the wukuei saber technique, and the blue dragon chi. It would have been easy to force Yu Chenxi to use his state. It would have been 50-50. However, these were all Xiao Chen's trump cards. There was no need to expose them. Congratulations, in 2 months, you managed to advance from a martial saint to a martial king. I'm afraid you are the only one with such a shocking speed. Yu Chenxi landed beside Xiao Chen and laughed softly. His voice was melodious and pleasing to the ear. Xiaochen said softly, "It's nothing. After using so many spirit herbs, it would be inexcusable if I did not break through." This person was as humble as before. He spoke so casually. However, a regular cultivator would not be so bold even with so many natural treasures. At this moment, Bai rushed over. When she saw Xiaochen, she smiled joyfully and said, "Elder brother Xiaochen, you have become stronger again." However, Bai did not slack off. "Elder sister, you said that I am now an inferior grade martial king." Xiaochen looked at Yu Chenxi doubtfully. He did not dare to believe Bai's words. He remembered that before she came, she was only a superior grade martial saint. How could she improve so quickly? Yu Chenxi nodded and said, "I did not lie to you. Bai is indeed a martial king. Her heart-nourishing universe sword technique gives me a headache. Furthermore, she has condensed a sword heart. If she goes to the great Jin nation's drifting snow sword pavilion, there will be many supreme elders fighting to take her in as a disciple. I am a good friend of the drifting snow sword pavilion's young pavilion master. If you are interested, I can let Bai enter the inner sect." Xiaochen had heard of the drifting snow sword pavilion before. It was a peak sect famous for swords. There were many experts in the sect, comparable to the Supreme Sky sect. When Xiao Bai heard that, she said softly, "Xiao Bai is not going to the sword pavilion. I just want to follow behind elder brother Xiaochen. In the future, when I become powerful, I will help elder brother Xiaochen beat up bad people. Thank you for your kind intentions. However, Bai has her own place to go. Let's forget about the drifting snow sword pavilion." When Yu Chenxi saw that the two were not interested, he did not raise this suggestion. It was already late at night. After the few chatted for a while, they took their leave. Dong! Dong! As Xiaochen closed his eyes and cultivated, he suddenly heard footsteps. He opened his eyes and saw Yu Chenxi standing not far from him. "White-robed bladesman, can we speak for a while?" Yu Chenxi asked quietly as he looked at Xiaochen under the moonlight. After glancing at the sleeping Bai, Xiaochen nodded slightly. Then, he headed off into the distance with Yu Chenxi. The two stopped at the periphery of Qianren Island. The sea breeze blew from afar, gently caressing the two. It felt very comfortable. Xiaochen casually found a clean spot and sat down. Then, he asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Yu Chenxi took a deep breath. Then, he seemed to have made up his mind. He said seriously, "In a few days, the Supreme Elder of my sect should be here. At that time, I would like to invite you to return to the great Jin nation with me." Xiaochen raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "You want me to go to the Supreme Sky sect with you?" Yu Chenxi nodded and said, "That's right. Right now, the cultivators of the world are facing a rare golden age. All sorts of geniuses are emerging. There are countless outstanding people. If you go to the great Jin nation, you will have a better understanding of this golden age. That is the dream land of all genius cultivators. In the past year, I have traveled all over the boundless sea. Even that place pales in comparison to the great Jin nation. Since ancient times, there are many spirit veins that have never been scattered. There are many martial techniques left behind from the ancient era. There are countless strong sections. The competition there is more intense than anywhere else. If a cultivator does not go to the great Jin nation, they will never know how narrow their vision is." A fervent look flashed in Xiaochen's eyes. Clearly, he yearned to go to the great Jin nation that Yu Chenxi mentioned. That was also the place he had to go after leaving the great Jin nation. From the first time Yu Chenxi invited him to exchange moves with her, to the time when she asked for his help on Qianren Island, Xiaochen had thought that this girl would not approach him for no reason. Now, she finally stated her purpose. She wanted to invite him to join the Supreme Sky sect. It looked like her position in the Supreme Sky sect was not simple. However, Xiaochen had his own thoughts. Joining a large sect meant that he would have to choose a side in advance. However, How strong was the Supreme Sky Sect? Was it worth choosing a side now? Before he had a better understanding, Xiaochen would not make a decision so easily. Xiaochen muttered to himself for a while before asking, with your talent and strength, you should be able to rank among the top of the younger generation in the great Jin nation, right? When Yu Chenxi saw that Xiaochen seemed to be interested, he smiled and said, I can definitely rank among the top. However, I am still a distance away from the top. However, with the daybreak flower, I should be able to close the gap. If Yu Chenxi, with his demonic talent, could not rank among the top, then the competition in the great Jin nation had reached an extremely intense stage. Yu Chenxi continued, the peak powers of the continent have been searching for geniuses from all over the world. Have you ever wondered why Kim Taeho and Su Xiaoxiao are on such good terms with you? Why? Xiaochen asked interestedly. Yu Chenxi kept Xiaochen in suspense. He smiled gently and said, the power behind them is also a peak sect of the continent. They are one of the true players of the continent. As long as you come with me to the Supreme Sky Sect, you will know everything. When Xiaochen heard this, he could not help but laugh. This baffled Yu Chenxi. He asked, what are you laughing at? Xiaochen got up and patted the dust off his body. He smiled gently and said, I am laughing at your poor persuasion skills. Since you want me to join the Supreme Sky Sect, why did you not tell me the benefits of joining? Instead, you blabbered on and on. What is the point of that? Yu Chenxi suddenly understood. He said, right, I forgot to mention that. The Supreme Sky Sect has all sorts of immortal-grade medicinal pills and countless spirit herbs that are more than 1,000 years old. There are even many heaven-ranked martial techniques and cultivation techniques, and, Xiaochen interrupted Yu Chenxi and patted her shoulder. Then, he smiled and said, Miss Yu, this must be your first time persuading someone, right? Yu Chenxi was stunned for a while. Then, she asked, how did you know? No, the sky is about to brighten. You should sleep early. Don't disturb my cultivation. After Xiaochen spoke, he turned and left. As Yu Chenxi watched Xiaochen leave, she felt a headache coming on. She stomped her foot angrily. During this experiential training, she had met many outstanding talents from various places who came to curry favor with her. She had seen at least 50 people like Jin Wuji, if not 100. However, she did not fancy any of them. She had finally found someone she liked after much difficulty. Who knew that he would be so difficult to deal with? Furthermore, none of those people were like them. When Yu Chenxi saw Yu Chenxi, she was very polite and submissive. Jin Wuji did not care about her attitude at all, treating her like an ordinary person. Yu Chenxi even started to doubt her own charm. It looks like I will not be able to complete the mission that first martial uncle gave me, Yu Chenxi said with a drawn-out sigh. Early the next morning, when the first rays of sunlight shone down, the three of them woke up. After breakfast, Yu Chenxi came over and started talking about last night's topic. Xiaochen, I am very sincere. In the next 5-nation youth competition, even the people from the boundless sea and the ancient desolate land will be participating. This will be the grandest competition in the history of the Tianwu continent. You should have thought of participating before, right? However, the intensity of this competition is much higher than before. If you had not become a superior grade martial king, you would not have made it into the top 100. You should join the Supreme Sky Sect. Only a peak sect like the Supreme Sky Sect would know about fortuitous encounters. Only a fortuitous encounter can allow your strength to soar in 2 years. After struggling for an entire night, Yu Chenxi finally thought of a pretty good condition. After he spoke, he looked at Xiaochen in anticipation. Xiaochen was about to reply when his strong spiritual sense suddenly felt an overwhelming energy flying over. The elders of your sect should have arrived, Xiaochen said softly as he looked at a huge wave in front. When Yu Chenxi heard this, he quickly looked over. He saw a towering wave a kilometer away, stretching for 50 kilometers. It was like a rolling door, slowly rolling up from the bottom to the top. Then, It left the surface of the sea and soared into the air. An old man walked over calmly on the surface of the sea. Undulating, monstrous waves rose from the ground as the old man walked over quietly. There were no energy fluctuations from the towering waves. The surface of the sea was calm as the old man walked over quietly. Even a martial monarch could not break through the huge wave. When seen from a distance, it looked like a huge wave gate was lifted up by a formless energy. Is this the power of a sage? Just by raising his hand, he can easily overturn the seas and rivers, changing the world. When Xiaoqin saw the old man walking over slowly, he did not show much astonishment in his eyes. There was only shock, a deep shock. This was a true expert, the people who stood at the peak of this world. Today, Xiaoqin finally got to see their true faces. Who? The old man was a kilometer away earlier. Now, he was already on the island. Even though he only took a few steps, he surpassed the limits of distance and arrived in an instant. First Martial Uncle, why are you here? When Yu Chenxi saw the old man, he revealed a joyful expression and quickly ran over. The old man smiled faintly. Then, he looked at Yu Chenxi and said, "You have no idea how anxious we were when we received your message. If not for the sect needing someone to stand guard, your grandmaster would have come personally." Yu Chenxi stuck out his tongue mischievously. He smiled and said, "It is not like I can't get out. I am just temporarily trapped. You are all too anxious." Chapter 395. Yu Chenxi gave Xiaoqin a meaningful look and quickly whispered a few words into the old man's ear. After the old man heard this, he looked at Xiaoqin with great interest. His gaze seemed to see through all the disguises in this world and see through Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin's eyes narrowed as he sensed the other party's vast mental strength. He instinctively wanted to use his divine sense to block it. However, when Xiaoqin thought about how the other party was a bona fide martial sage intending to check on him, his spiritual sense might not be strong enough to block it. Even if he succeeded, it would only attract the other party's interest, and he would use other methods to achieve his goal. Hence, Xiaoqin simply gave up on resisting. He would just watch. It was too difficult to keep all his secrets from a martial sage. Xiao. The old man withdrew his gaze and revealed a thoughtful expression. He muttered to himself, "What a strange kid, I can't see what his martial spirit is." "Uncle Master, what do you think of this person? What do you think of my taste?" Yu Chenxi asked expectantly. The old man nodded and smiled, reaching inferior grade martial king at the age of 18. With such a cultivation talent, he can only be considered an outstanding talent in the great Jin nation. However, he has grasped two states at the same time. Just this point alone makes him a genius. There's another important point, Yu Chenxi asked with interest, "What else?" The old man nodded and said, "I'll talk to him myself later." In short, you didn't misjudge him. He is the kind of person this old man is looking for. Yu Chenxi immediately smiled happily, but then he said helplessly, "This fellow doesn't seem to be moved by force or persuasion. I talked for a long time, but he didn't show any signs of agreeing or refusing." The old man leisurely smiled and softly said, "He is a smart person. I will go and talk to him." Xiaoqin and Xiaobai were about 200 meters away from the old man. Logically speaking, at such a close distance, he should be able to hear the conversation between Yu Chenxi and Xiaobai very clearly. But for some reason, he couldn't hear a single sound, and when he looked over, the figure of the other party seemed a little blurry. In this way, it was impossible to guess what the other party was talking about by mouthing. Just as he was thinking about something, the old man and Yu Chenxi suddenly appeared in front of him. Xiaoqin collected his thoughts and cupped his hands in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, saying, "Junior Xiaoqin greets senior. May I know your name?" The old man sized up Xiaoqin from a close distance. When he saw that Xiaoqin did not show any change in his expression when he saw him, the old man praised him in his heart. "I don't dare to claim my name. I am Guing, an idler of the Supreme Sky Sect." If you don't mind, you can call me Senior Gu. Xiaochen nodded and said, thank you for your help, Senior Gu. Otherwise, I would have to stay on this deserted island for more than a year. Guing waved his hand and said, it can't be considered a help. It was just something I did along the way. If I guessed correctly, you should have only started cultivating for 2 years, right? The moment Guing said this, not only did Xiaochen feel astonished, but Yu Chenxi, who was behind Guing, was even more astonished. Could this be the crucial point that first martial uncle mentioned? To be able to cultivate to martial king in 2 years, his talent was truly horrifying. Xiaochen also did not expect Gu Ying's eyes to be so sharp. He could even see this. Xiaochen could only nod and admit it. Guing smiled faintly and said, you are a smart person. I will not beat around the bush. The continent is in the midst of a once-in-a-thousand-years golden age. The peak powers are all looking for geniuses. Without understanding the Supreme Sky Sect, it is wise not to choose a side. However, I have to warn you. Before the next 5-nation youth competition, it is best to choose a side. That will be your last chance. Take it. This is your reward for helping Chenxi. Guing tossed over a golden medallion. Xiaochen caught it and took a look. The words, Supreme, were written on the front of the medallion and, Haotian, were written on the back of the medallion. The golden medallion seemed to have a miraculous power. When Xiaochen held it in his hand, he felt a faint warmth. There was an indistinct gentle energy coming from it. It instantly calmed one's state of mind, allowing one to completely relax. Seeing Xiaochen catch the medallion, Guing smiled and said, I'll take my leave first. In the future, when you come to the Great Jin Nation, you might as well come to the Supreme Sky Sect. This old man will do his best as a host. Xiaochen put away the medallion and performed a cup-fist salute, Senior, please take care. In the distance, Guing carried Yu Chenxi, moving a kilometer with each step. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from Xiaochen's sight. As Xiaochen stared at the two's footsteps, he muttered, according to legend, every move of a martial sage can affect the laws of heaven and earth. It looks like the legend is true. Guing carried Yu Chenxi in the air, moving a kilometer with each step. First martial uncle, why didn't you tell him about joining the Supreme Sky Sect? Yu Chenxi asked Guing, feeling suspicious. Guing smiled gently and said, it's fine. Just accept the Haotian medallion. You are a good lass, but your thoughts are too pure. Otherwise, you would not have been so angered by this brat that you could do nothing about it. Xiaochen withdrew his gaze and smiled at Bai, it's time for us to go. The two of them walked quickly towards the huge wave. Not long after they left, the huge wave slowly sank back down. The entire Qianren Island was sealed up by the huge wave once again. It would reopen in 3 years. However, not many people would return by then. On the calm surface of the sea, Xiaochen and Bai chatted as they walked. With their current cultivation, it was no longer difficult for them to walk on the water. Bai said softly, Elder brother Xiaochen, I have already practiced the flowing light sword art to the 5th layer. In the future, I will no longer be afraid of the bad guy, Bai. So, elder brother Xiaochen, please don't treat me as a burden. When Xiaochen saw Bai's slightly red eyes, he was stunned. The current Bai was no longer the little spirit fox who did not know anything. Her thoughts had started to become more meticulous. She already had her own thoughts about some of his actions. Xiaochen rubbed Bai's head and smiled gently, how can Bai be a burden? In the past, she helped me pick many herbs and saved my life a few times. Now, she has become even stronger than me. After a pause, Xiaochen looked at the calm sea in front of him and muttered, however, I owe you too much. If I let you get injured again, I will not be able to bear it in my heart. When Bai was born, Xiaochen separated her from her mother. Although the situation was urgent back then and he had saved her from the hands of the Tang clan, he still had his own selfish motives. However, he still had his own selfish desires. Otherwise, he wouldn't have passed on a secret demonic cultivation technique to his mother as compensation. Outside Whitewater City, the little fellow did not hesitate to go berserk to save him from the hands of Hua Yunfei and Duanmuking. Then, for Xiao Chen's sake, she dragged her exhausted body through savage forest. In the dangerous savage forest with many ferocious spirit beasts, she snatched food from the tiger's mouth and snatched medicinal herbs to help Xiao Chen survive the most dangerous period of his life. From that moment on, Xiao Chen swore in his heart that he would no longer treat Xiao Bai as a pet. He would also not let her get hurt because of him. After Bai transformed into a human, the guilt in Xiao Chen's heart became even stronger. He did not dare to let Bai take any more risks. Therefore, in his heart, he had never seen Whitey as a burden, not even in the slightest. Bai's eyes were somewhat moist. She said softly, "Is that true? Elder brother Xiao Chen?" Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Really? Even truer than pearls. Let's go. Let's compete to see who reaches Green Wind Island first. If you get there first, I'll treat you to a feast and good wine." Bai stopped crying and smiled. She said, "Good. Bai runs very fast. Elder brother Xiao Chen will definitely not be able to catch me." Boom. Boom. Just at this moment, an unending wave suddenly surged up a kilometer away from the two. The wave was a kilometer tall and surged ferociously. An undercurrent immediately surged up on the calm surface of the sea and quickly surged towards the huge wave. In the blink of an eye, the huge wave instantly grew another kilometer. Aside from martial sages, no one else could achieve such a feat. Xiao Chen showed a helpless expression. A sense of helplessness welled up in his heart. Unexpectedly, he ran into two martial sages in one day. Before martial sages, the two had no chance of survival. However, the other party did not attack. Clearly, there was still room to turn the situation around. Xiao Chen looked up and saw that there was no one around. He shouted, "I wonder which senior is here. Why are you blocking this junior's path?" Pooh! Pooh! Suddenly, soft footsteps came from behind the two. Xiao Chen turned his head to take a look. Xiao Chen saw two blurry figures slowly appear in the distance. It was a man and a woman, both dressed in white. Only when they got closer did they see their appearances clearly. The man looked to be in his 30s and had an incomparably handsome face. There was a faintly discernible demonic aura on his face, and his eyes were deep and filled with endless temptation. This was a man that would drive all women crazy. Xiao Chen had never seen such a handsome and elegant man before. He brought out the charm of a man to the extreme. The woman also looked to be in her 30s. However, she was pretty and had smooth skin. She looked extremely charming. When she walked with the man, they looked like a perfect match. The expression in the two's eyes was very familiar to Xiao Chen. Suddenly, he turned his head to look at Bai. Suddenly, he was startled. This man and woman looked very similar to Bai. Xiao Chen had a guess in his heart. Bai grabbed Xiao Chen's arm tightly and hid behind him. She said in a soft voice, "Elder brother Xiao Chen, why do I feel that these two people are very familiar?" "Naturally, you are my daughter. How could you not be familiar?" The handsome man in white smiled gently as he looked at Bai. The beautiful woman at the side smiled at Xiao Chen and said, "Little friend, thank you for teaching me the secret technique and for taking care of my daughter for so long." Bai looked at Xiao Chen and asked, "Elder brother Xiao Chen, is what they said true?" Xiao Chen's expression turned grave. He had not expected such a scene. After a long time, he nodded and said, "Bai is real. They are your parents." Since the other party could tell him the secret of the mysterious 9 heavenly revolution transformation and they looked so similar, their identities could not be faked. Chapter 396. The only thing that Xiao Chen had doubts about was how the other party found him. Bai's eyes were filled with curiosity. He looked at the two of them, looking very excited. The sense of familiarity and closeness that came from their bloodline caused Bai to lose his initial panic. Xiaochen took a deep breath and did his best to remain calm. He asked, "How did you find me?" Bai's parents exchanged glances. Finally, the white-clothed man said, "Let me tell you. Bai's mother knows your identity. After she successfully transformed, she went to the Myriad Fiend Palace to look for me. From then on, I sent people to the great Qin nation to look for news of you. However, you seem to have offended some big powers and went into hiding. The people I sent could not find any news of you. It was only until 3 months ago, when you defeated the noble clan heirs at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, that we heard news of you again. After that, news of your battle with Yu Chenxi at the Green Wind Island spread out. That was when we found out where you were." It made sense. After leaving the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Xiaochen did not bother to hide his movements. As long as a power wanted to find him, it would not be difficult. With his doubts cleared, Xiaochen threw caution to the wind. He said, "What do you want? Just say it. Kill me or torture me. After all, I cannot resist. Do you want to kill elder brother Xiaochen? Bai forbids you from harming him." When Bai heard Xiaochen's words, he immediately stood in front of Xiaochen anxiously. The white-robed man and the beautiful woman looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. "Why would I kill you? You saved my wife's life and helped my daughter transform successfully. I can tell with a glance whether or not you've enslaved her. How can I, and Zixuan, not distinguish right from wrong?" This person's words gave off a very magnanimous feeling. He stood quietly on the surface of the sea, not emitting the aura of a martial sage. Xiaochen's expression relaxed slightly. Clearly, he had not expected such a situation. He had taken in the other party's daughter as his pet. Originally, he thought the other party would punish him. Even if they did not kill him on account of him saving Bai's mother, they would definitely beat him up. From the looks of it, not only would they not kill him, they would even take care of him. This confused Xiaochen. Bai's mother looked at Bai and smiled, "We will not do anything to you. We just want Bai to stay in the Myriad Fiend Palace. If her identity is discovered in the human world, she will be an anomaly." And Zixuan continued, "With your strength, it is far from enough to protect her. Staying in the Myriad Demon Palace is the safest." Xiaochen lowered his head and entered deep thought. The other party was Xiao Bai's parents. Logically speaking, they had the right to take Xiao Bai away. He did not have many requests to refuse. However, he still felt somewhat reluctant to send Xiao Bai away so quickly. For a long time, he had been alone, with Xiao Bai accompanying him. To Xiaochen, Bai was no longer a pet but a true companion. After she left, his path as a cultivator would be even lonelier. Bai will not leave. Bai transformed into a human after much difficulty so that she can stay by Xiaochen's side and cultivate to help him beat up the bad guys. When Bai heard that Zixuan wanted to take her away, she quickly walked behind Xiaochen and spoke timidly. When Zixuan heard this, his expression changed slightly. He sized up Xiaochen, and the expression in his eyes started to change. An indistinct killing intent spread out. Xiaochen immediately felt a horrifying pressure. He could not understand what was going on. He raised his guard and prepared to retreat at any time. When Bai's mother saw the situation, she pulled Zixuan gently and whispered something into his ear. Only then did his expression improve. When Xiaochen heard what Bai's mother said, he could not help but smile bitterly. It turned out that Zixuan thought that Xiaochen was toying with his daughter. That was why Bai said such things. However, no matter how much of a scoundrel I am, I will not make a move on a little girl, Xiaochen thought gloomily. However, Xiaochen could understand why his parents were so worried. It was time for him to say something. Xiaochen pulled Bai to the front and smiled gently, "Bai and your parents should leave first. I will go to the Myriad Fiend Palace to visit you in the future. With my current strength, I am indeed unable to guarantee your safety." Bai's eyes were somewhat moist as she said, "Elder brother Xiaochen, do you not want me anymore? When Nzixuan and his wife saw how attached Bai was to Xiao Chen, they did not know what to do. Especially when they saw the little girl crying, they did not know what to do. Xiao Chen advised softly, "You have been by my side for a long time already. However, your parents have never interacted with you. This is not fair to them. Isn't Bai very sensible?" When Bai heard this, she entered deep thought. Clearly, she was moved by Xiao Chen's words. However, she still hesitated and felt very uneasy. At this moment, Bai's mother walked over and gently held Bai's hand. She smiled and said, "Bai, your strength is still very weak. Xiao Chen will always have to split his attention to protect you. This will affect his cultivation. You don't want that to happen, right?" When she said this, Bai lowered her head. She thought to herself, "That's right, I am indeed too weak. I can't even defeat some strong demonic beasts." Although Xiao Chen did not say that she was a burden, there were some things that did not need to be said. For a long time, it was indeed Xiao Chen who had been protecting her. She rarely helped Xiao Chen anymore. When Bai thought of this, she raised her head and asked, "Then, if I go to the Myriad Fiend Palace, will I be able to become stronger?" And Zixuan finally heaved a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "You are my daughter. Naturally, your talent will not be bad. As long as you go to the Myriad Fiend Palace, you will be stronger than me one day." Bai turned around and asked Xiao Chen if this was true. After she received a positive answer, she finally agreed to go to the Myriad Fiend Palace. What will come will come. Even though Xiao Chen was reluctant, he still made up his mind. He removed the spirit blood jade from his chest and handed it over to Nzixuan. Nzixuan received the spirit blood jade and took a look. Then, he handed it back and said softly, "Keep it. There will be a chance for us to meet again in the future. I know you truly care about Bai." After Nzixuan spoke, he took out a jade medallion and handed it to Xiao Chen. He said, "This is the Myriad Fiend Palace's Heavenly Fiend Medallion. In times of danger, it can summon an ancient fiend emperor's clone to protect your life. If you do not need it, you can come to the Myriad Fiend Palace to look for me. I will agree to a condition that is not too excessive." After receiving the medallion, Xiao Chen felt somewhat speechless. These martial sages seemed to like giving medallions to others. He actually received 2 medallions in one day. "The two of you will take your leave. Bai will take her leave as well. In the future, when you go to the Myriad Fiend Palace, don't be a little drunkard." Xiao Chen smiled gently and said goodbye to everyone. As Bai watched Xiao Chen leave, she wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes. She made a vow in her heart. "After 2 years, I will definitely become stronger. I will not be a burden to elder brother Xiao Chen." After saying goodbye to Bai, Xiao Chen was truly alone. In the future, he could only walk the path of cultivation by himself. Xiao Chen brandished the lunar shadow saber in his hand and smiled faintly, "That's not right. I forgot about you. I still have the lunar shadow saber. No matter what, my saber will always be by my side." There was still a long way to go, he had to walk it himself. Xiao Chen sorted out his emotions and continued his journey to the Green Wind Island. Just as Xiao Chen was about to reach the halfway point, 2 sharp killing chi came from a group of reefs in front. They shot towards Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's gaze paused and he looked forward. When he saw the appearance of the 2 people, he could not help but feel it was strange. He said, "Wu Shangshuan and Yang Wen, why are the 2 of them together?" Xiao Chen remembered that Wu Shangshuan had personally killed a few of Yang Wen's companions in the treasure room on Qianren Island. Now, the 2 of them were together. Unexpectedly, they had become companions. Xiao! Xiao! Wu Shangshuan and Yang Wen quickly flew towards Xiao Chen. Soon, they landed 100 meters in front of Xiao Chen. Wu Shangshuan rubbed his chin, which was still slightly misaligned. A dark look flashed on his aged face as he said ruthlessly, "I said it before. As long as we wait here, we will meet this brat sooner or later." Yang Wen, do you believe me now? Yang Wen smiled faintly and did not deny it. He looked at Xiao Chen and said, hand over the box you obtained from the treasure room and the spirit herbs you obtained from the herb garden. Then, I can let you off today. Otherwise, you can forget about leaving here alive. Xiao Chen squinted his eyes and revealed a faint mocking expression. As long as they had a common interest, they could stand together so intimately. This was interesting. However, did these two people really treat him as a piece of meat on a chopping board? Wu Shangshuan revealed a murderous intent on his face. He said coldly, why are you wasting your breath on him? Just kill him. After that, we will split his spatial ring. Kill. After Wu Shangshuan spoke, he stomped heavily on the surface of the sea. The huge force caused the calm sea to surge. Bang! Yang Wen's eyes turned cold. He did not waste any more words. He stomped on the surface of the sea and shot forward. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm as he looked at the two people with startling auras. There were no fluctuations in them at all. A fierce purple flame burned continuously in his right eye. Soon, a huge flame whirlpool formed in the boundless space in his right eye. Xiao Chen shouted, and the surging purple flames surged forward. Boom! When the two of them were less than 20 meters away from Xiao Chen, a huge purple flame suddenly soared up in front of them. It was 10 meters long and 100 meters tall. The blazing purple flame flickered with a dim light. Its high temperature caused the surface of the sea to boil. Steam rose up and spread out, forming an overwhelming mist. Wu Shangshuan's and Yang Wen's expressions changed greatly. Just a moment ago, the boundless surging sea was before them. In the next moment, it seemed like only the huge purple flame remained in the world. It filled their vision, shocking them. Retreat! The strange and strong purple flame startled the two of them. They could not understand what was going on. They executed their movement techniques to their limits and quickly retreated. Chi! Chi! When the purple flame landed, a deep pit with a diameter of more than 20 meters appeared on the sea where the two of them were originally standing. Countless amounts of water vapor rose from the surface of the sea. The deep pit only appeared for an instant before the surrounding seawater quickly surged over. Chapter 397. A huge whirlpool formed on the calm surface of the sea. It sucked in all the surrounding water. The whirlpool spun continuously, growing faster and faster. In the end, a huge pillar of water rose from the ground and shot straight into the sky. It was an incomparably terrifying sight. Wu Shangshuan and Yang Wen exchanged glances. They could see fear in each other's eyes. 3 months ago, although this Xiao Chen was very strong, he was still slightly weaker than them. However, at this moment, Xiao Chen's casual attack, without even drawing his saber, caused such a huge commotion. His strength clearly surpassed any of them. Damn it! This fellow has matured. We have to do our best to take him down today. Otherwise, we might die here, Wu Shangshuan said with a cold expression. Wu Shangshuan said with a cold expression. At some point in time, a black dagger had appeared in his hand. Yang Wen also took out a pair of gloves from his spatial ring and slowly put them on. There were barbs and hooks on the gloves. There was also a spiritual light flickering on them. Clearly, it was a secret treasure. When Xiao Chen saw the actions of the two, he smiled faintly and slowly walked forward. The flames in his right eye started to gather once again. Boom! 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 Streams of purple flames shot out like cannonballs. Everywhere they passed, the air burned. A vacuum appeared, dark and gloomy. Bang! Bang! Zoom! 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 The two of them continued to jump up and down on the surface of the water, dodging the incoming purple flames. The waves on the surface of the sea surged and surged continuously. From time to time, pillars of water would shoot out in all directions. Occasionally, some unlucky fish would be carried into the air by the waves. However, they were immediately roasted by the high temperature, leaving only their skeletons. Boom! Suddenly, Yang Wen shouted and leaped into the air. A strong force burst forth from the gloves as he punched. Yang Wen punched the purple flames flying at Xiao Chen. When the horrifying fist wind struck the purple flames, there was an intense explosion. Shockwaves surged and a 100-meter-tall wave immediately appeared on the surface of the sea. It looks like 70% of the purple flame's strength is equal to the peak strike of a superior-grade martial king, Xiao Chen thought to himself. Since that is the case, there is no need to continue testing it. Ka-Xie. Xiao Chen placed his right hand on the saber hilt and drew the lunar shadow saber at lightning speed. A dazzling purple light quickly appeared on the saber blade. Wu Shangshuan turned into a black line and passed through the water screen. Just as he was about to catch Xiao Chen off guard, he suddenly felt a boundless killing intent surging toward him from above. With a horrified expression, he hurriedly raised his head to look, only to see a dazzling purple aurora, so piercing that it hurt his eyes. Dang! In the time it took for a spark to fly, Wu Shangshuan took half a step back. He held his dagger in front of him and blocked Xiao Chen's descending attack. His experience saved his life at the crucial moment, preventing him from being split into two halves by the saber. However, the huge force from the dagger numbed Wu Shangshuan's wrist. He nearly lost his grip on the dagger. When Wu Shangshuan saw Xiao Chen's calm expression but his eyes filled with killing qi, his heart turned cold. He quickly used his left hand to support his wrist. Can you block it? Xiao Chen snorted coldly. He lowered his right hand, which was holding the saber hilt. The purple qi whirlpool in his dantian spun rapidly and a boundless essence liquid poured out. With the aid of the purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer, Xiao Chen's strength instantly increased by 20%. Bang! This force knocked Wu Shangshuan's body into the sea, sending him flying. His dagger also flew out of his hand. How many spirit herbs did this fellow eat? Why is his essence so surging? It is even stronger than a regular peak superior grade martial king. Wu Shangshuan vomited a mouthful of blood. He was horrified as he thought to himself, Xiao Chen actually crushed me in terms of essence. Although Wu Shangshuan's cultivation technique was only medial grade earth ranked, he had cultivated it for decades. However, he, Xiao Chen, was only in his teens, yet he could suppress Wu Shangshuan in terms of essence. Boom! Suddenly, there was a piercing sonic boom. It was Yang Wen taking advantage of this opportunity to fly over. Xiao Chen turned around and brandished his saber. His movements were swift and fluid, and the saber landed on his opponent's glove. Dang! 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 The sharp saber gave off sparks as it struck the glove. However, the glove was not damaged at all. Most of the surging essence had been dissipated by the glove. Yang Wen smiled sinisterly, my glove is an offensive peak inferior grade secret treasure. You do not have the ability to break it. Don't regret giving me the opportunity to get close. Xiao. In a flash, Yang Wen arrived less than a meter from Xiao Chen. His right fist punched at Xiao Chen's chest. The barbs and spikes on his fist could be seen clearly. This made one tremble in fear. If one was struck, even if they did not die, they would be severely injured. When cultivators fought in close combat, long weapons like sabers and swords would lose their usefulness. They would not be able to block the opponent's attack. The longer one was, the stronger one was. The shorter one was, the more dangerous one was. This was the principle. Xiao Chen tilted his body to the side and dodged his opponent's attack. Then, he quickly retreated. Just as his opponent was about to get close again, Xiao Chen brandished his saber. However, that strange glove managed to dissipate most of the force from Xiao Chen's attack. Yang Wen took advantage of this opportunity to get close again. Hu Qi. This repeated a few times. In the end, Xiao Chen could not shake off Yang Wen's attack. Wu Shangxuan, who had recovered his essence, took this opportunity to join the battle. He turned into a black beam of light and occasionally used his sharp dagger to harass Xiao Chen. With the two of them working together, they finally suppressed the imposing Xiao Chen. They forced Xiao Chen back. In the blink of an eye, he had retreated a kilometer. Wu Shangxuan regained some color on his face. He smiled sinisterly and said, "Brat, the people that I, Wu Shangxuan, target have never survived. You will not be an exception. I will trample you to death later. You actually dared to kick me. How reckless." Right after Wu Shangxuan spoke, in the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen caught onto Wu Shangxuan's carelessness and kicked him. Ka xie. Xiao Chen kicked Wu Shangxuan's chin again. Xiao Chen sent Wu Shangxuan tumbling in the air. Blood dripped continuously from his chin. This is a good opportunity. Yang Wen's eyes lit up in joy. He could not help but increase the speed of his fist wind. Xiao Chen had just sent out a kick. When he pulled it back, he would be wide open. He would not be able to dodge or retreat in time. Xiao Chen could not dodge this punch. However, he did not intend to. With a thought, the jade pendant on his chest flashed with light. A thick essence barrier surrounded Xiao Chen. Ka xie. Ka xie. The gloves with barbs and iron spikes only paused on the surface of the Yuan Qi barrier for a second before they broke through it and continued forward. It looked like this jade pendant was as it said, it could only block a peak medial grade martial king's attack. It could not block a superior grade martial king's attack. However, if it could slow down the force of his opponent's punch, Xiao Chen would have achieved his goal. After all, he still had a peak inferior grade defensive inner vest. The sharp gloves struck Xiao Chen's chest. However, there was no bloody mess or hole in his chest as Xiao Chen expected. It only knocked Xiao Chen back 10 meters. After that, he was fine. How can this be? My gloves are extremely sharp. Even a peak superior grade martial king cannot block them, Yang Wen said in shock. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and brandished his saber. He pressed forward and said, "You are not the only person in this world with secret treasures." Yang Wen recovered his wits and smiled. "As long as you let me get close, as long as your essence is not stronger than a martial monarch's, no matter how strong you are, my fist will be able to neutralize it." "Is that so?" Xiao Chen smiled coldly, and a red light flickered on his forehead. The dazzling purple saber instantly gave off a red light, it was the state of massacre infused into it. Ka! Ka! Before Yang Wen's incredulous gaze, Xiao Chen's saber chopped the glove on his right hand in half, causing it to fall to the ground. Xiao Chen could no longer neutralize the surging force. When the saber chi swept out, it opened a horrifying wound on Yang Wen's chest. Wukuei shakes the heavens. Xiao Chen followed up with another attack. He executed the killing move of the Wukuei saber technique. After advancing to Martial King, the strength of the Wukuei saber technique had increased several-fold. The might of a peak Earth-ranked martial technique was truly unleashed. The divine Wukuei tree descended from the sky with a surging aura, carrying the force of lightning. Yang Wen could not dodge in time. The divine tree shook him, causing him to vomit large mouthfuls of blood. Then, he fell to the sea. Xiao Chen did not give Yang Wen a chance to get up. He rushed forward and swung his saber 3 times, ending this person's life. Then, Xiao Chen casually removed this person's spatial ring. Then, he turned his gaze to Wu Shangxuan, who had turned into a black beam of light fleeing into the distance. "Xiao Chen, the next time you meet this old man will consign you to eternal damnation. I will make you die a tragic death." Xiao Chen leaped into the air and said indifferently, "You no longer have that chance." Wukuei breaks the heavens. A beam of light alternating between purple and red appeared on the saber. It quickly elongated. In the blink of an eye, it extended a few thousand meters above the sea. Everywhere the beam of light passed, huge waves surged up on both sides of the sea. It looked very horrifying. Ah! There was a miserable cry. At the end of the beam of light, Wu Shangshuan clutched the bloody hole in his chest. His eyes were filled with horror. Pooh! 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 Xiao Qin slowly walked over on the water. By the time he arrived before Wu Shangshuan, the other party was already dead. Xiao Qin removed the spatial ring on his hand. Xiao Qin did not even bother to look at the other party's corpse. He sheathed the lunar shadow saber and resumed his journey to the Green Wind Island. The setting sun looked like blood as it reflected on the vast sea. The two corpses floated quietly on the surface of the sea. Soon, there would be nothing left of them, the ferocious fish would devour them. After killing two peak superior grade martial saints, Xiao Chen's emotions did not fluctuate much. Before he advanced to martial king, he could already kill superior grade martial kings. Now that he was a martial king, his cultivation had increased significantly. His strength had increased in all aspects. Killing two ordinary peak superior grade martial kings was nothing. A cultivator's strength was determined by the purity and quantity of essence. After that, it was determined by the cultivation technique, the martial technique, and the state that they comprehended. Xiao Qin was not lacking in any of these areas. He relied on a large number of spirit herbs to increase his essence to that of a peak superior grade martial king. His cultivation technique was a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. However, his opponent only cultivated a medial grade earth-ranked cultivation technique. As for his martial technique, it was a peak superior grade earth-ranked ancient martial technique. Chapter 398. As for states, there was no need to even mention them. The vast state of thunder infused with holy might and the state of massacre, which was above ordinary states, completely suppressed the other party. With Xiao Chen's current strength, aside from the peak geniuses of some sects, he would be undefeatable. As long as a half-step martial monarch did not appear, Xiao Qin would be undefeatable within the martial king realm. Collecting his thoughts, Xiao Qin opened Yang Wen's spatial ring and scanned it with his spiritual sense. He counted more than 20,000 inferior grade spirit stones and 5,000 medial grade spirit stones. It looked like this person had gained a lot on Qianren Island. 5,000 medial grade spirit stones was not a small sum. However, all of this now belonged to Xiao Qin. After Xiao Qin put away the spirit stones, he fixed his gaze on Wu Shangshuan's spatial ring. This person was ruthless and crafty. In the main hall of Qianren Island, at least 80 treasure seekers had died at his hands. When Xiao Qin thought of the dozens of bloody corpses at the entrance, he felt a chill in his heart. I wonder how many things are in Wu Shangshuan's spatial ring. Xiao Qin felt some anticipation as he sent in his spiritual sense. See! Piles of spirit stones flashing with azure light dazzled Xiao Qin. Even though he had prepared himself, he had not expected this person to be so rich. Xiao Qin did a rough count. This person had more than 15,000 medial grade spirit stones and more than 200 of the extremely rare superior grade spirit stones. There were countless inferior grade spirit stones. There were also many secret treasures and all sorts of martial techniques and cultivation techniques. He must have obtained them from other cultivators. Xiao Qin took a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. He said indifferently, relying on the evil path is not the right path. This person had so many resources, but he could not advance to half-step martial monarch. This was the best proof. This was also a warning to Xiao Qin. If a person's heart was twisted, they would not be able to reach the peak. The busy harbor of Green Wind Island appeared in Xiao Chen's vision. Xiao Qin placed the spirit stones into his universe ring. He quickened his pace and rushed toward the Green Wind Island. After setting foot on the island, Xiao Qin immediately rushed to his inn and inquired about the whereabouts of Kim Taeho and Su Xiaoxiao. Young hero, your friend left a month ago. Before he left behind a letter and asked me to give it to you. When the waiter saw Xiao Qin asking, he quickly took out a letter and handed it to him. Since he left a month ago, it meant that Kim Tae-ho had been waiting for him for more than 2 months. That was enough. Xiaoqin smiled gently and received the letter. Then, he rewarded the waiter with an inferior-grade spirit stone. The waiter immediately left happily. Opening the envelope, Xiaoqin read it carefully. After a while, Xiaoqin finished reading the contents. There were not many words in the letter. The gist of it was that the dispute between them and the Black Dragon Triad had been settled, and both sides had taken a step back. They could not wait for him to deal with this matter for the time being. At the end of the letter, Kim Tae-ho invited Xiaoqin to visit the Great Tang Empire when he had the time. At that time, Xiaoqin would receive him properly. Regarding Kim Tae-ho's invitation, Xiaoqin was somewhat interested. The strongest sect in the Great Tang Empire, the beast-taming abode, was famous. He had wanted to go and take a look for a long time. The beast-taming abode was the only sect that systematically tamed high-ranked spirit beasts. According to rumors, they even tamed rank 9 and rank 10 spirit beasts. The beast-taming abode was very famous in the entire continent. The founder, Mao Yanan, was also the only cultivator who did not have the strength of a martial emperor but could compete with one. After putting away the letter, Xiaoqin called the waiter to prepare a room and hot water. After that, he took a comfortable hot bath and put on his clothes. Then, he ordered a sumptuous meal and started eating. After living on a deserted island and in closed-door cultivation for the past 3 months, Xiaoqin felt somewhat bored. Now that he had taken a bath and had a sumptuous meal, he felt that it was a wonderful thing. Waiter, give this lord 2 jars of wine and 5 kilograms of beef. The faster, the better. Dong! 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 Just as Xiaoqin finished eating and was about to pay the bill and leave, a stout man came up from downstairs. He was 2 meters tall and carried a huge axe. He looked boorish and ferocious. Most people would tremble in fear when they saw him. This was Bai Lishi, whom Xiaoqin had forced out of the herb garden. Xiaoqin had not expected to see him here. Bai Lishi looked around and saw the white-robed Xiaoqin. His expression could not help but change, and a ferocious look appeared in his eyes. He took out the giant axe from his back and swung it at Zhang Xian without any hesitation. Dang! Xiaoqin did not draw his saber. Just as the huge axe was about to hack down, the tip of his saber struck the axe's edge, giving off a dull sound. A huge force came from the saber. Unexpectedly, Xiaoqin was unable to block it. He was forced back 3 steps and only stopped when he pushed his heels against the wooden boards. This axe seems to be quite famous, Xiaoqin thought to himself. Bai Lishi's physical body should be stronger than his. However, Bai Lishi was not ridiculously strong. Even when Xiaoqin used some skill, he could not neutralize the force. This could only mean that the problem was with the axe. However, Xiaoqin did not think too much about it. At this moment, he had no intention of fighting with this person. Even if he was a martial king, his chances of defeating Bai Lishi were not more than 50%. Xiaoqin could only say that he did not fear this person. After all, Bai Lishi was a famous cultivator. Furthermore, he had substantiated his physical body. His combat prowess was much stronger than cultivators of the same cultivation realm. Seeing that Bai Lishi intended to make another move, Xiaoqin said sullenly, Bai Lishi, if you still want spirit herbs for tempering the physical body, go ahead and chop down with this axe. When Bai Lishi heard this, his eyes flickered. After hesitating for a long time, he did not chop down in the end. Dang! Bai Lishi casually placed the axe on the floor, and the huge restaurant trembled. He sat down and said, this old man forgot. Brat, you cultivate the physical body as well. You must have picked a lot of spirit herbs for tempering the physical body. Hand over all the spirit herbs for tempering the physical body, and I will not kill you. I, Bai Lishi, always keep my word. Xiaoqin sat down across from Bai Lishi. He smiled gently and said, sorry, I need those spirit herbs for tempering the physical body. So, I cannot give them to you. Bai Lishi's expression turned cold. He raised his huge axe and said angrily, "Brat, you dare to trick this old man?" Just as Bai Lishi was about to erupt in anger, Xiao Qin said leisurely, "I do not have any spirit herbs. However, I do have a heaven-ranked body-tempering secret manual that the Savannah King passed down." Bai Lishi's expression suddenly changed. He quickly put away his huge axe and asked with a bewildered expression, "Are you talking about the Savannah King's firmament body-tempering art?" Xiao Qin smiled gently and tossed out the firmament body-tempering art. When Bai Lishi saw it clearly, he immediately put it away. Unexpectedly, it really is the firmament body-tempering art. I thought that the Dark Church's people had snatched it away. Unexpectedly, you managed to find it. Bai Lishi's expression filled with shock. A fervent look appeared in his eyes. There were very few cultivators on the continent that cultivated the physical body. Naturally, cultivation techniques for tempering the physical body were even rarer. Even if there were, they would be low-ranked cultivation techniques. Finding a high-ranked cultivation technique was harder than ascending to heaven. For so many years, Bai Lishi had only cultivated an inferior grade earth-ranked cultivation technique. He had already cultivated that cultivation technique to its peak long ago. There was no way for him to improve it any further. When Bai Lishi saw that Xiao Qin really had a heaven-ranked body-tempering cultivation technique in his hands, his excitement was easy to imagine. Bai Lishi's hand unknowingly moved to the handle of his axe. He withdrew his killing chi and thought to himself happily, "This brat took the initiative to come to me. When I kill him, I can vent my anger and obtain body-tempering spirit herbs and secret manuals. This is killing many birds with one stone." Xiao Qin took a sip of tea and looked at Bai Lishi. He said softly, "Put away your axe. If I want to leave, you will not be able to stop me. If I was not confident, would I take the initiative to sit across from you?" Bai Lishi calmed himself down and said, "What do you want? Just say it." "I have to obtain that heaven-ranked body-tempering secret manual." Xiao Qin said casually, "You have to be willing to give it to me first. Have you sold that 1,000-year-old snow ginseng?" Bai Lishi laughed loudly and said, "You should have said so earlier. I am keeping it. This is for you. Hand over the body-tempering secret manual." What Bai Lishi cultivated was the physical body. This 1,000-year-old snow ginseng could only increase a cultivator's cultivation. Although it was very precious, it would not be of any help to him. Hence, Bai Lishi tossed it over straightforwardly. Xiao Qin smiled and said, "You are too naive. You want to exchange one snow ginseng for a heaven-ranked secret manual? That is barely enough. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Bai Lishi snorted coldly and smacked the table heavily with his right hand. A huge force came from his palm and the wooden table immediately shattered. The table did not shatter. Instead, it truly shattered, turning into countless wooden shavings. Bai Lishi's control over his strength had clearly reached a certain level. Bai Lishi raised his huge axe and hacked at Xiao Chen's head with lightning speed. However, just as the sharp axe was about to break Xiao Chen's head. Bai Lishi stopped what he was doing. The instant the table shattered, Xiao Chen pointed 2 fingers on his right hand at Bai Lishi's throat. A 3-inch-long short sword spun rapidly under Bai Lishi's neck. That 3-inch-long short sword looked plain and unadorned. However, Bai Lishi could feel a frightening energy from it. Bai Lishi did not doubt that if he made a move, that short sword would immediately pierce through his throat. Even though his physical body had been tempered to the point of being as tough as steel, it would not be an exception. Xiao Qin said coldly, "You can try. Let's see if your axe or my flying sword is faster." Bai Lishi's expression did not change as he said, "Brat, don't be too greedy. If I guessed right, you should have taken away the Savannah King's burial items. This small sword should be one of his burial items as well, right? The firmament body tempering art that you gave me should be a copy as well. Using a copy to exchange for a 1,000-year-old snow ginseng is a sure win for you." If you are too greedy, have you thought about the consequences if I spread the news that you obtained the burial items? Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, go ahead and say it. I can also spread the news that you injured me. You snatched away all the burial items. I have close to 50,000 medial-grade spirit stones. You can try and see who can spread the news faster. Bai Lishi's expression turned sullen. His right hand grasped the handle of his axe tightly. He said coldly, what exactly do you want? The atmosphere between the two was very strange. One held his axe and pressed it against the other's head. The other controlled a secret treasure and pressed it against the other's throat. Chapter 399. As long as both sides had a single thought, they would immediately perish together. Those whose minds were slightly unstable would most likely be defeated in this battle. When the people in the restaurant saw Bai Lishi and Xiaochen fight, they all left. When they saw the strange situation, they all fled as far as they could. Bai Lishi was infamous. If he was in a bad mood, he might even destroy the entire restaurant. If he continued to stay here, he would be in deep trouble if he were to be accidentally injured in the fight. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. It was like he did not see the dangerous axe above his head. He said indifferently, it is very simple. It is impossible for you to use the snow ginseng to exchange for the secret manual. Even if the secret manual is a copy, it is not possible. Speaking of which, I was the one who tossed the snow ginseng to you. It is mine. You are using my things to exchange for it. Don't even think about trying to gain something without risking anything. When Bai Lishi heard this, he felt very angry. To think that this fellow was so shameless. If he had not tossed the 1,000-year-old snow ginseng at him for no reason, would he have been forced to leave the herb garden early? If he had not left the herb garden, he would have obtained at least a few good spirit herbs for body tempering. If he was lucky, he might even have obtained the burial items of the Savannah King. Now, Bai Lishi was trying to bite back at him, saying that he was trying to gain something without risking anything. This was simply too shameless. Bai Lishi said ruthlessly, you are ruthless. I will add another 2,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Is that enough? Xiaochen remained silent. After a while, he said, if I bring this firmament body linking art to the ancient desolate lands auction house, I believe it will fetch at least 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Bai Lishi's hand trembled. He nearly could not resist hacking down. This fellow looks delicate and young, but he is too arrogant. What did 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones mean? Bai Lishi did not even have that many medial-grade spirit stones. If he did not kill others for treasures or have any fortuitous encounters, he would have to work hard in the ancient desolate land for 5 or 6 years. Bai Lishi took a deep breath and did his best to suppress his violent heart. He said, add another 2,000. Is there any more? Xiaochen looked calmly at Bai Lishi. He said indifferently, at least 5,000. If there is no more, then forget it. I will sell it myself. Otherwise, you can bet that you can avoid my flying sword before the axe hits me. However, I have to warn you in advance that this artifact of mine is a peak low-rank offensive artifact. Its speed is so fast that even I do not have the confidence to avoid it. Bai Lishi's eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. Ever since he became famous, he had never been forced into such a miserable state. Furthermore, the other party was a junior. Every single one of his words hit the nail on the head, preventing the other party from shedding all pretenses of cordiality. The feeling of being stifled was simply indescribable. But the elementary heaven stage body refining secret manual was too important to him. It was the key to whether he could advance further. Corroborating one's Tao with the physical body was extremely difficult. Bai Lishi was able to cultivate from an ordinary person to a peak superior grade martial king. This proved his talent. His innate talent and bone structure weren't bad, and he only lacked a higher level secret manual to go a step further. However, Xiaochen just happened to grasp his Achilles heel, causing him to be helpless and helpless. Xiao. Bai Lishi withdrew his huge axe. His coarse face looked extremely horrifying. After he calmed down for a long time, he said, "You win. I will add another 1,000 medial-grade spirit stones. I will use the remaining medial-grade spirit stones to purchase spirit herbs and other things. However, I can tell you a piece of information." Xiaochen withdrew his small sword from Bai Lishi's throat and thought to himself, 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones, and a piece of information in exchange for a copy of a Heaven Stage secret manual. This was more or less the price Xiaochen expected. If Xiaochen continued squeezing him, Bai Lishi would probably go crazy. A Heaven Stage cultivation technique might seem very expensive, but Xiaochen's was a body-refining cultivation technique. In reality, it would not fetch a high price. This was because there were too few cultivators who corroborated their Tao with the physical body. This was not a cultivation technique that could be sold for a high price. Hence, the moment Xiaochen saw Bai Lishi, he made up his mind to rip him off. Only with Bai Lishi would he be able to maximize the value of this copy of the secret manual. The two of them found another table and sat down. Xiaochen said indifferently, "Speak. What information is worth 2,000 medial-grade spirit stones?" Bai Lishi said sullenly, "Information about a medial-grade secret treasure. Do you think it is worth it?" Xiaochen felt excited. He immediately felt interested. Needless to say, he already had a deep understanding of the effects of secret treasures. The clear wind robes increased his speed in all aspects. Even now, he still had it. The windwalk shoes allowed him to be as fast as a martial king when he was still a martial saint. The defensive jade pendant had helped him in many battles. As for the peak inferior grade inner vest that he just obtained, it had saved his life once. The palm sword in Xiaochen's hand also gave him the confidence to fight against Bai Lishi. Without these secret treasures, Xiaochen's strength would decrease by about 10%. His movement technique would decrease by at least 20%. This showed how important secret treasures were to him. However, now that he was a martial king, several secret treasures could no longer keep up with his growth. For example, that jade pendant could only defend against the attacks of a medial-grade martial king. Now, it was useless. The windwalk shoes could increase Xiaochen's speed by 20% when he was a martial saint. However, now that he was a martial king, it could barely increase his speed by 1 grade. The inferior grade inner vest had suffered heavy blows from the greedy dream wolf and Yangwen. It was unknown how long it could last. Of the secret treasures that Xiaochen had, the only ones that were useful were the palm sword and the clear wind robes. Medial grade secret treasures were very tempting to him. Xiaochen put down the teacup in his hand and said interestedly, "Tell me more about it." Bai Lishi said, "You should have heard of the demon battlefield in the ancient desolate land before, right? Most of the secret treasures still circulating in the continent came from there." Demon battlefield. Xiaochen had heard of it before at the auction in Shihe City. The secret treasures auctioned at that time were obtained by cultivators who risked their lives in the demon battlefield. Bai Lishi continued, "With your strength, there should not be any danger in the periphery of the demon battlefield. However, it would be dangerous in the inner region. If you want to go to the core region, I can only wish you good luck." Xiaochen frowned slightly and said sullenly, "What do you want to say? Just say it." Bai Lishi laughed loudly and took out a piece of paper. He wrote down an address and drew a map. Then, he handed it over and said, "Medial grade secret treasures normally only appear in the inner region of the demon battlefield. The medial grade secret treasure that I am talking about can be found in the periphery. Of course, there is some danger. Whether you can obtain it or not will depend on your ability." Xiaochen received the piece of paper from Bai Lishi and took a look. With the words and the map, the location was clear. Bai Lishi took out boxes of medial grade spirit stones. Finally, he took out the snow ginseng. He said, 5,000 medial grade spirit stones, a 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, and information about a medial-grade secret treasure. That should be enough, right? Xiao Qin put away the piece of paper and swept everything under the table into his universe ring. Then, he smiled faintly and said, that should be enough. Hand that thing over. Bai Lishi said expressionlessly. Xiao Qin took out a secret manual from the universe ring and placed it on the table. Then, he turned and left. Bai Lishi's face was filled with excitement. His eyes burned with passion as he grabbed the secret manual and quickly flipped through it. He said excitedly, "It's true. It's true. The firmament body tempering art. Ha ha ha. I, Bai Lishi, have finally found a heaven-ranked cultivation technique." Soon, Bai Lishi flipped to the last page of the secret manual. After he saw it clearly, his expression changed greatly. He raised his huge axe and charged at Xiao Qin. "Bastard! How dare you lie to me? Why is there only a 6th layer? A heaven-ranked cultivation technique has at least 12 layers. Where is the remaining half?" Xiao Qin, who had already reached the staircase, turned around and smiled. "Naturally, it is in my hands." Bai Lishi stomped heavily on the wooden floor and hacked down at Xiao Qin's head with his huge axe. Just by relying on the strength of his physical body, his speed reached Mach 3. Dang! Xiao Qin drew the lunar shadow saber at lightning speed. The two states quickly merged. Thunder and massacre merged. A purple and red light flickered on the saber. When Xiao Qin executed drawing the saber, his speed instantly reached Mach 3. He blocked Bai Lishi's heavy axe in midair, not giving way at all. Along with a heavy sound, a terrifying force spread out from the two people's weapons. The entire roof of the restaurant was immediately blown away. Fortunately, the other cultivators had foresight. Otherwise, they would not have had a good time if the shockwave hit them. Seeing Xiao Qin block his furious strike, Bai Lishi was mildly astonished. He said angrily, "Brat, what exactly are you thinking? I already gave you the thing, yet you are still trying to trick me." Xiao Qin held the lunar shadow saber and said calmly, "Don't treat me like a 3-year-old child. Do you think you can get a secret treasure just because you say so? If it is that easy to take, why don't you take it yourself?" Bai Lishi said, "If I were not in a rush to Qianren Island, I would have taken the secret treasure long ago. How could it be your turn to take it?" Xiao Qin's expression remained calm, there were no fluctuations in it. He said indifferently, "Who cares? What do you say? After I obtain the secret treasure, I will give you the remaining 6 layers. I advise you not to make a move. If I am in a bad mood and burn the latter half of the secret manual, your spirit stones and snow ginseng will all go to waste." Bai Lishi felt extremely frustrated. He had been completely tricked by Xiao Qin in this transaction. However, the crucial thing was that he could not do anything to this brat. No matter what, this fellow would always be able to take advantage of him. Every time, Xiao Qin would hit his weak spot. Damn it! Bai Lishi cursed ferociously. Then, he hacked the restaurant a few times with his huge axe. A horrifying force spread out and the entire restaurant collapsed, turning it into rubble. Xiao Qin casually walked on the wide streets of Green Wind Island. Bai Lishi followed behind him with a depressed expression. "Hey, isn't that the white-robed blades man? The one beside him looks like Bai Lishi. What's going on? Why are they together?" Indeed, I remember that the white-robed bladesman tricked Bai Lishi a few times on Qianren Island. How strange. Given Bai Lishi's temper, nothing happened and they ended up together. I heard that the two of them fought at the Heavenly River restaurant earlier. In my opinion, it is very likely that Bai Lishi could not do anything to Xiao Qin. Now, Xiao Qin was somewhat famous on Green Wind Island. Furthermore, Bai Lishi had been famous for a long time. Hence, when they walked out, many cultivators immediately recognized them. Chapter 400. Xiao Chen's heart was as calm as an ancient well. There were no ripples at all. He smiled and automatically filtered out these words. Bai Lishi clearly could not take it anymore. He was originally angry, but when he heard these words, he felt even more sullen. Finally, when he heard someone say that he could not do anything to Xiao Chen, he could not take it anymore. He exploded, "What are you shouting about? Do what you are supposed to do. Shut up." Seeing Bai Lishi's ferocious appearance, the others quickly shut up, afraid of trouble. However, after Bai Lishi left, more discussions resounded. Bai Lishi could not do anything about this. He could only suppress his anger. The more he thought about it, the more upset he felt. After the restaurant collapsed, Bai Lishi started fighting with Xiao Chen. However, even after hundreds of exchanges, he could not take down Xiao Chen. Bai Lishi had to admit that with Xiao Chen's current strength, he could already contend against him. So, he could only agree to the other party's request. After Xiao Chen obtained the secret treasure, he would ask for the second half of the firmament body tempering art. Hence, Bai Lishi followed him. Bai Lishi said angrily, "I say, brat. Are my words that untrustworthy? Why would I lie to a junior like you? Can't you just give me the second half?" Xiao Chen did not even turn his head. He smiled faintly and said, "Trust you? Do you think that your reputation is good? Do you want to ask someone?" Seeing that Xiao Chen intended to ask someone, Bai Lishi quickly stopped him. He was very clear on his reputation. If he let Xiao Chen ask, wouldn't that be giving him a slap in the face? "Although I, old Bai, have killed more people, I am not as clean as you, Bai. My voice is a little unpleasant to hear, and my temper is a little irritable. However, this old man has always been open and aboveboard. If I say I did not lie to you, I did not lie to you." Xiao Chen waved his hand to stop Bai Lishi from continuing. He said calmly, "Don't say anything. After I successfully obtain the medial grade secret treasure, I will give you the secret manual. The more you say, the more I suspect you." As Bai Lishi cursed, Xiao Chen quickly headed for the island's harbor. Since Xiao Chen made up his mind to obtain the secret treasure, he decided not to linger and set off immediately. The secret treasure would not just sit there and wait for him to obtain it. If someone else got it before him, he would suffer in silence. After they left the city and walked along the road, there were many cultivators who recognized the two of them. There was no lack of strange discussions. This was especially so for the words, "white-robed bladesman." Bai Lishi could not help mocking Xiao Chen, "Look at how many people call you the white-robed bladesman. It seems like you take this title for granted. How can you be called a bladesman?" Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat. Then, he asked interestedly, "In that case, tell me why I cannot live up to the title of bladesman." Bai Lishi smiled coldly and said, "Although you have a sharpness in your heart, this sharpness has not formed into your saber intent. Without saber intent, how can you be a bladesman? Go to the ancient desolate land and see what kind of people the 10 great bladesmen are. Then, you will know what a bladesman is. Not to mention that it is too far away, just take the bloody bladesman's son Guangquan that you met. He took more than 20 years to obtain this title. As for you, you are still very inexperienced. You probably cannot even feel Sun Guangquan's saber intent." Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows. He did not refute Bai Lishi's words. Bai Lishi was right, Xiao Chen was not a true bladesman. In the somewhat decaying heavenly saber gate, aside from martial techniques and tempering the mental state, there were all sorts of martial techniques related to the saber. Xiao Chen had not learned anything about the cultivation of a bladesman. It was as Yun Kursen said, the heavenly saber pavilion no longer had bladesmen. There were only cultivators who used the saber. When Bai Lishi saw Xiao Chen remain silent, he continued smiling, "How is it? Brat, I was right, right? However, don't be discouraged. I am acquainted with old Sunday. I will ask him to exchange pointers with you another day. I will let you experience his saber intent." I guarantee that you will successfully cross the threshold of becoming a bladesman. However, you have to give me the second half of the firmament body tempering art first. At the very least, you have to give me the third layer. How about that? Xiao Chen laughed hoarsely. This Bai Lishi really did not deviate from his profession. He was concerned about the firmament body tempering art. After a few words, he changed the topic back to that. Xiao Chen was probably going to be annoyed along the way. Brat, don't remain silent. Let me tell you, with the help of the Bloody Blades man, the time you need to comprehend saber intent will be greatly reduced. Seeing that Xiao Chen ignored him, Bai Lishi called out continuously from behind him. This continued all the way until Xiao Chen reached the harbor. Xiao Chen had not expected a burly man like Bai Lishi to be so talkative. No matter how good Xiao Chen's mental state was, there was always a fly buzzing behind him. It was very annoying. Most importantly, he could not kill this fly with one slap. Helplessly, Xiao Chen stopped walking. He said, "Old Bai, we are already at the harbor. Can you stop for a while?" When Bai Lishi saw Xiao Chen's frustrated expression, he laughed happily. "What's wrong? Are you feeling annoyed? Let me tell you, this is just the beginning. You bastard, how badly did you cheat me at the restaurant? Years of savings, 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, and news of a medial-grade secret treasure. In the end, you only obtained half a secret manual. Furthermore, it was just a copy. If I can't beat you to death, I will annoy you to death. If you are annoyed, then take out the other half." Xiao Chen finally saw what it meant to be a scoundrel. Furthermore, Bai Lishi was a man. He was truly impressed. "Do as you please. If you do not obtain the secret treasure, I will not give you the other half of the firmament body tempering art." The Green Wind Island's harbor was very busy. With one glance, countless merchant ships could be seen. The merchant associations of various nations were all here. The entire harbor was also filled with people. It was very crowded. However, most of the merchant ships were heading out to the boundless sea. Xiao Chen searched for a long time but could not find any returning merchant ships. Bai Lishi said from behind, "Brat, stop looking. The merchant ships returning from the boundless sea will only appear at night." Xiao Chen felt suspicious. He asked, "Why?" Bai Lishi looked at Xiao Chen with disdain. He said, "Young people do not understand. This is the rule of the Green Wind Island's harbor. There are too many ships. In the past, there were often incidents of merchant ships heading out to sea and returning to the harbor colliding and sinking to the bottom of the sea. Hence, the two ships are managed at different times." Xiao Chen glanced at the thousands of huge merchant ships in the harbor. He somewhat understood what Bai Lishi meant. The world here was different from his previous life. The merchant ships were too big and there were too many of them. Without a convenient way to command them, it would be very difficult to manage them. Xiao Chen looked up at the sky. The sun was setting in the west. It was already dusk. It would not be long before it turned dark. "I'll just wait for a while." Xiao Chen found a place with fewer people on the shore of the harbor. Then, he sat down and took out a book from the universe ring to read. This book was the introduction to secret treasures that Xiao Chen had obtained in the past. There were too many people in the harbor. Xiao Chen would not be able to cultivate. However, he could not waste too much time. Taking some time to understand the different types of secret treasures, as well as the famous secret treasures, would be a good thing. "Brat, what's so good about books? Let's talk about tempering the body. I can tell that you have already cultivated the body to a certain level." Bai Lishi chased after Xiao Chen like a shadow. He placed his huge axe on the ground and sat down beside Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen could not be bothered with Bai Lishi. No matter what Bai Lishi said to him, he would quickly change the topic to the firmament body tempering art. Along the way, Xiao Chen had experienced this many times. "I can see that your physical strength is only about 100,000 kilograms of force. There is still a lot of room for improvement. How about this? Give me the 7th layer of the firmament body tempering art. Just the first layer will do. I can help you increase your physical strength to 25,000 kilograms of force. Indeed, after saying that, Bai Lishi changed the topic. Xiao Qin smiled faintly to himself, not intending to continue the conversation. Even if Bai Lishi's offer was very tempting, Xiao Qin ignored it. He focused on the secret treasures in the book. Time slowly went by. Just as the sky turned completely dark, Xiao Qin suddenly heard footsteps approaching. That person did not hide his aura at all. He locked onto Xiao Qin and walked over. Xiao Qin put away the book and quickly got up. Bai Lishi's reaction was no slower than Xiao Qin's. He turned around at the same time. That person had a sword hanging at his waist. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked very handsome. His aura was extremely sharp. His aura was like a sharp sword. Xiao Qin looked suspiciously at this person. He muttered to himself, why is Jin Wuji still here? Bai Lishi whispered, it seems like that person from the Heavenly Sword Gate. He looks very powerful. Is he your friend? Bai Lishi's words were clearly filled with mockery. Xiao Qin shook his head and said, I am not. Jin Wuji, who was less than 100 meters away, heard Bai Lishi's words clearly. Although he was angry at this person's mockery, he knew this person's identity and did not want to say anything. Jin Wuji focused his attention on Xiao Qin. He said sullenly, where is Yu Chenxi? Has he left yet? Xiao Qin frowned slightly. Why does this Jin Wuji's tone sound so aggressive? I don't remember offending this person. However, when Xiao Qin heard Yu Chenxi's name, he connected the dots and made some guesses. He smiled helplessly to himself. It looks like my first trouble has arrived because of her. Ignoring Jin Wuji's tone, Xiao Qin replied calmly, I obtained the daybreak flower and left with the upper echelon of the Supreme Sky Sect. Jin Wuji's expression changed slightly. He asked in astonishment, you helped her obtain the daybreak flower? Damn it. Originally, I should have helped Yu Chenxi obtain the daybreak flower. Unexpectedly, this brat messed up my plan once again. After a while, Jin Wuji did his best to calm himself down. He thought to himself, in the end, this person has some friendship with Su Xiaoxiao. There are many people here, so I'll let him off for now. Remember this, no matter what you did, a white-robed bladesman like you is not someone you can dream about with Yu Chenxi. Don't seek trouble for yourself. In the future, don't let me see you and Yu Chenxi together. Jin Wuji's expression turned sullen. He continued in a cold voice, otherwise, the Heavenly Sword Gate will make it hard for you to move in this world. Don't offend someone you cannot afford to offend. Humph. Who do you think you are? You have spoiled my plans time and time again. Don't even look at your own status. Chapter 401. Jin Wuji snorted coldly and cursed in his heart. Then, he slowly turned around and left. He did not even look at Xiao Qin. Bang! There was a loud sound. Xiao Qin was expressionless as he kicked Jin Wuji's back from behind. This kick contained a total of 150 tons of force. After a few muffled sounds, a few bones in Jin Wuji's back broke. He vomited a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. Jin Wuji's face was filled with pain. He pushed himself off the ground and tried to stand up. Bang! How could Xiao Qin give Jin Wuji the opportunity to stand up? He stomped down heavily again. Pa! Pa! Jin Wuji's handsome face came into contact with the ground again. This time, it was even more intense than the previous kick. Jin Wuji's face was swollen and blood flowed from the corner of his lips. Clearly, his internal organs were significantly injured as well. He was in a very sorry state. Chi! Chi! Jin Wuji struggled on the ground, trying to struggle free. However, Xiao Chen's right foot carried more than 100,000 tons of force. It was like a stabilizing force holding Jin Wuji in place. Jin Wuji could not use any of his abilities, state of metal, peak inferior grade martial king cultivation, high-ranked sword techniques of the heavenly sword gate, no matter what. No matter how Jin Wuji struggled, he could not stand up. Instead, as Xiaoqin increased his strength, the more he struggled, the more pain he felt. Xiaoqin looked at Jin Wuji on the ground. His expression did not change. He said indifferently, "Didn't your master tell you not to show your back to the enemy when you threaten them?" "Ah. Xiaoqin, you have eaten a leopard's gall. How dare you sneak attack me? I am the final disciple of the Heavenly Sword Gate's vice sect master. You offended me. You are dead for sure. Even Su Xiao will not be able to save you." Jin Wuji lay face down on the ground and let out miserable cries. His words were filled with boundless essence. His voice was sharp and seemed to be in a frenzy. It attracted the attention of many people at the port. Instantly, countless cultivators gathered around to watch the excitement. Strange, why is the white-robed bladesman fighting Jin Wuji? Unexpectedly, Jin Wuji could not retaliate at all. Indeed. He is, after all, one of the top 100 contestants of the previous 5-nation youth competition. Is this all he is capable of? Even if he was sneak attacked, he should not end up like this. However, he has the backing of the Heavenly Sword Gate. This white-robed bladesman would not dare to do anything to Jin Wuji. The Heavenly Sword Gate is one of the top sects in the Chu nation. There are many martial monarchs in the sect. Any one of them would be able to deal with him. Yes, but he dared to trample on Jin Wuji ruthlessly. Not everyone has that kind of courage. When the surrounding crowd saw Xiaoqin stepping on Jin Wuji, unable to move, they were all astonished. Jin Wuji was one of the top 100 contestants of the previous 5-nation youth competition. Jin Wuji had just finished speaking when Xiaoqin stepped on the back of Jin Wuji's head. Furthermore, Xiaoqin had held back. Otherwise, he would have crushed Jin Wuji's head. When Xiaoqin saw Jin Wuji in such a sorry state, he could not help but feel bored. How could such a person make it into the top 100 of the 5-nation youth competition? This was truly disappointing. Jin Wuji did not even raise his guard. Furthermore, he dared to threaten an opponent of similar strength to him. Did he really think that the words, Heavenly Sword Gate, would allow him to humiliate him? This was simply too laughable. Xiaoqin watched as the merchant ships returned to port one by one. He shook his head and released his foot. Then, he casually kicked Jin Wuji's body and lifted him up. Xiaoqin casually kicked Jin Wuji as though he was kicking a pile of trash. He did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. Seeing that a few merchant ships had already entered the port, Xiaoqin said to Bai Lishi, "Let's go." Bai Lishi laughed loudly and said, "I discovered that your temperament is finally to my liking. Such a brat who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth should be ruthlessly trampled on a few times. Only then would he feel better. Otherwise, he would not know his own capabilities. However, speaking of which, are you just going to let him off like this? Are you not afraid that he will seek revenge on you in the future?" Xiaoqin said calmly, "It does not matter. It is the same whether I kill him or not. His accomplishments will not be very high. There is no need to kill him and completely offend the Heavenly Sword Gate." The Heavenly Sword Gate was a sect with a sage. They also had many martial monarchs. If Xiaoqin offended the Heavenly Sword Gate, killing Jin Wuji or not would result in a completely different outcome. Xiaoqin was still able to distinguish the severity of the situation. As long as he did not kill Jin Wuji, he could still endure the revenge of the Heavenly Sword Gate. However, if that Jin Wuji did not know his place, Xiaoqin would not mind killing him. The Haotian Medallion and the Heavenly Fiend Medallion would be sufficient to help him deal with these problems. Bai Lishi was somewhat speechless as he said, "You brat, I thought you did not care about the Heavenly Sword Gate. Since that is the case, why did you make a move?" Xiaoqin placed his right hand on his saber hilt and smiled faintly. how many times do you think he will show his back to me when he is defenseless? Since the opportunity is right in front of me, if I do not make that move, I will be letting myself down. Bai Lishi was stunned at first. Then, he laughed loudly and said, "Ha ha ha. Brat, you are awesome. You have a trace of my demeanor back then. Who cares what high-rank sect it is or how many major characters they have backing them? So be it." What do you mean by a gentleman taking revenge? 10 years is not too late. Since there is an opportunity in front of you, you should vent your anger. Otherwise, if you keep it bottled up in your heart, you will get sick sooner or later. Hu Qi. Just at this moment, the sound of something breaking came from behind. An extremely sharp killing chi surged towards Xiao Chen's back. Xiao Chen's right hand remained on his saber hilt, maintaining his guard at all times. He immediately felt this killing chi. Dang! Xiao Chen turned around and drew his saber. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen quickly blocked the incoming sword. The two states merged on his saber, the power of massacre and the power of thunder burst out. Xiao Chen used his full power, not holding back at all. The moment he came into contact with Jin Wuji's sword, he knocked it away. Jin Wuji's face was swollen and his long hair was disheveled. He was in a sorry state. When he saw his sword knocked away, he was astonished. He could not help but vomit another mouthful of blood. Caught off guard, Jin Wuji was stomped on by Xiao Chen. Then, he was stomped on heavily. His internal organs were already injured. It was already very difficult for him to send out another attack. Xiao Chen raised his lunar shadow saber and placed it on Jin Wuji's neck. He said indifferently, "Jin Wuji, are you that eager to die?" When Jin Wuji heard this, he laughed loudly, "Trash! Do you dare to kill me? So what if you severely injure me? You have no sect or power. Even the Bloody Blades man does not dare to kill me. What can you do to me? If you wanted to kill me, you would have done so long ago. Why aren't you making a move? It is all because I fear the revenge of the Heavenly Sword Gate." A ruthless look flashed on Jin Wuji's face. He said in a cold voice, "If not for Su Xiao, I would have killed you long ago. You would not have the chance to be so arrogant today. If you have the guts, then kill me. Just wait for the Heavenly Sword Gate to kill your entire family. Today, you have already thoroughly offended me. If you kneel and beg for mercy now, I can spare your life. Otherwise, no matter where you go, I will repay today's humiliation 100-fold. Jin Wuji's expression turned sullen. When he saw the saber that Xiao Chen placed on his neck, he did not show any fear. He is really reckless, Xiao Chen thought to himself. However, when he thought about it, he felt that something was wrong. Logically speaking, with Xiao Chen's saber pressed against Jin Wuji's neck and death approaching, even if Jin Wuji had the Heavenly Sword Gate behind him, he should not be so confident. Xiao Chen turned his head and looked in the direction of Jin Wuji's gaze. He saw a white-robed swordsman standing on the bow of a merchant ship returning to port. He had an indistinct smile on his face as he looked at the three of them quietly. That person's aura was completely withdrawn. There seemed to be a surging sword intent in his body, wanting to gush out. He was like a treasured sword that had not been unsheathed. Jin Wuji smiled and said, "This is my first senior brother, the final disciple of the Heavenly Sword Gate's sect master. He just returned from experiential training in the Boundless Sea. He is a martial king and is undefeatable. Don't think that you are undefeatable just because you had a fortuitous encounter." It looked like this person was the source of Jin Wuji's confidence. No wonder he had stayed here for 3 months. He must have been waiting for this person. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Interesting. He is much stronger than trash like you. However, no one can save you today. Die." Boom. Just as Xiao Chen was about to use his saber to kill Jin Wuji, a powerful sword shot out from the merchant ship. Everywhere it passed, it kicked up huge waves on the surface of the sea. Its aura was incomparably terrifying. The sword chi gathered on the sword did not scatter at all. It gathered at the tip of the sword. Space was like layers of white paper stacked together as the sword pierced through it. Xiao Chen was mildly startled. The sword intent on the sword was stronger than he had imagined. Furthermore, it was incredibly fast, reaching Mach 3 in an instant. If Xiao Chen still wanted to forcefully attack, he would have to face this sword head-on. Xiao Chen thought quickly and quickly made a decision. He sheathed his saber and retreated, dodging this sword. Pa! Although Jin Wuji had said it casually, he had taken a trip to the gates of hell. He could feel his heart beating faster. It was several times faster than usual. He felt a lingering fear and could not help but kneel on the ground with a pu tong sound. Wang! 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 That sword quickly spun around. It did not stab into the ground as it had done earlier. Instead, it spun around in the air and continued to stab at Xiao Chen. This is the Heavenly Sword Gate's Heavenly Gate defensive sword technique. It is a secret technique of the Heavenly Sword Gate. Aside from the sect master's inheritor, no one can learn it. Ding Fengqiu is here. No wonder this Jin Wuji was so bold as to sneak attack. It turns out that his first senior brother is here. This white-robed bladesman is in trouble. Ding Fengqiu entered the top 100 of the 5-nation youth competition a year ago. His talent is considered top-notch in the Great Jin Nation. Now that another year has passed, his strength will definitely increase explosively. When the many cultivators saw the sword flying in the air, they quickly figured out the origins of this sword technique and the identity of the person who executed it. Boom! 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 Xiao Chen did not intend to waste too much time with the flying sword. If he did, he would fall into the other party's grasp. So, he took 3 steps back. The enormous yuan qi on the sword had blasted 3 huge craters in the place where he had been previously. One could imagine how powerful the sword control technique was. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.